Pastor John Freeland from the Skyline United Methodist Church. Can you step forward, please, and give us the invocation?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Let us pray. Our Heavenly Lord, we see in Romans chapter 13 that there's no authority except that which comes from God, that you have established authority. So as we stand before these who have been placed in authority by duly being elected, we pray for wisdom for them as they administer the affairs of Brookhaven City. And we pray for the citizens of that fair city as well, that you would also give them wisdom and guide them. So Lord, we pray as we come to you in this moment of business, that we might be about business in an appropriate way that is pleasing to you, that is pleasing to this city council and to our mayor. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. All right, before I call this meeting to order, we have some kids here to do the gavel gang to help me call the meeting to order. If Sophie Pigram, Thomas Pigram, and Parker Pigram would please step forward and come on up behind that stage over here.
Come on, Sophie. All right, guys.
All three grab the gavel.
Sophie.
Okay, you come over here if you like. Run to you. You all grab the gavel together. You just bang it twice. All right. Like you just called the meeting to order. Take a picture. There we go. Do you have any comments you want to make? Thank you very much. All right. Madam Clerk, if you please call the roll.
Yes, sir. Mayor J. Max Davis.
Here.
Councilmember Rebecca Williams. Here. Councilmember Jim Meyer.
Here.
Councilmember Bates Madison.
Here.
And Councilmember Joe Gebbia.
Present.
Thank you. All present.
All right, if you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Again, thank you, Sophie, Thomas, and Parker. We have quite a packed meeting tonight. We haven't had one we've missed two meetings because of this snow and ice. It looks like we may have skipped one coming up soon. It was fortunate. We have a lot of announcements, and I'll try to keep everything as short as possible, but I'll just start with, about a month ago, I went to Washington, D.C. for the U.S. Conference of Mayors. And while I was there, Google was there, and your city manager kind of signed me up without my knowing to do a commercial for Google for Brookhaven Business, an online commercial. We did that and had meetings at the White House, did some other things, but when we heard that Google Fiber was announcing that Brookhaven was going to be one of the cities they were focusing on installing Google Fiber, we were very excited. Your city manager and I spoke with Google a couple of weeks ago. We had a meeting yesterday at Google with the city manager, Marie Garrett, community development director and deputy director, Susan Cannon Bensong, and Councilman Bates Madison, where we learned what the criteria is going to be for us getting this fiber. Google likes to move very quickly, we learned yesterday as well. So you should be very proud that you were selected your city was selected, because the criteria involved some things like economic development indicators, demographics, population, job growth, things of that nature. And Google chose Brookhaven for those reasons, and we're very excited about that. We're going through a process with them, and I know that we've gotten lots and lots of emails about people wanting Google Fiber to come to Brookhaven, and we're excited about it. I know a lot of the residents are, so we're moving forward with that, and happy to say that Brookhaven was on the front row at yesterday's meeting, had the best questions, and our city manager performed very well, and kind of established herself as a leader among the city managers, because it's going to be very important that all these communities work together to try to get this done in a timely fashion. So very excited about that. And because of the commercial that she got me to do, we have some T-shirts here. It was just coincidental that yesterday when we had the meeting at Google, we got back to the city hall and there were 2 big boxes from Google, not related to Google Fiber, but because of the commercial that we did. So I'd like to give some of these out. If anybody wants a T-shirt that says, Brookhaven, get your business online with Google. That was basically the pitch that I made for the Google commercial online. So we have 5 or 6 here. Maybe the Gavel Gang kids can get one each. And then maybe mom too. So if you'd like to come up and get some T-shirts, please do. Or don't, or we'll throw them. I got an air cannon back here. There we go. There we go. Here he comes. Come on, Sophie.
Of course, this will swallow her up.
You're going to fall right through this.
These will be pajamas for you. Thank you, Joe. All right. They're up here. I think we got 5 or 6 or 7, so if anybody else wants one, besides the kids, after the kids, then please come up and get one. All right.
Come on, Sophie.
And we have some other opening remarks. Council, want to go ahead and do it now? Or you want to wait?
I'd rather wait until the announcement after
Okay.
consent agenda.
All right. Then does anybody else have anything they want to open with?
No, thanks.
Okay.
I just want to, it seems like old news now, but I just want to congratulate our city on the response to the 2 big storms. Thank you to all the police officers who stayed on duty, stayed overnight, even though you had relatives and families stuck in the ice and snow. And we so appreciate your dedication, and congratulations to Public Works and for the good job they did in clearing our streets. You know, we're being a new city. This was sort of our first trial by fire, and I was very pleased with how our city manager ran things and kept us informed, and I'm very proud of how we
Communications department.
Yes.
And communications sent out bulletins.
Yes.
If you haven't signed up for the e-news blast, you really need to, because this is how you knew what was going on and what streets were open and not, and what was next, and it was great.
Yes. We all echo that. Okay. Now we have some commendations for exceptional service. Chief Yandur, if you'll come forward, please.
Sure, Mr. Mayor and Council, if I could have Sergeant Antoine Redding and Officer Stacy Gibson come on up. Just give you a little background. We were having a number of auto break-ins in the area of the hotel on Lake Hearn Drive. So early in the morning on January 18th, Sergeant Antoine Redding,
Come on, guys.
Shy.
Not a time to be shy.
ended up going in the parking lot, turned his lights off, and ended up seeing a person in the parking lot, and ended up seeing right next to that person about 6 cars with broken windows. The cars were broken into. Immediately after seeing Sergeant Redding, the person took off, ran into the wood line. We called a canine, I believe, that day. They didn't make it, but Sergeant Redding did a great job with the rest of the shift. They surrounded the area. The guy jumped out of the woods, ran on to 285, where Sergeant Redding ended up tackling him and getting in a fight with him in the median of 285.
The median of 285?
Median of 285.
Wow, that's like a movie or something. Going toe-to-toe on the median of 285.
So he did a great job on that. For that, we want to commend him. For those you don't know, he's affectionately known as Scooby-Doo, because when he gets excited on the radio, you can't understand what he's saying.
Does he actually start talking like a dog?
The other one that assisted him is Officer Stacy Gibson. Stacy has a background in being a detective also, but he did an excellent job after the fact on interviewing and interrogating this guy, where he actually got taped interview showing exactly which cars he broke into. He actually wrote out diagrams for him to make the case solid proof. So with that, we'd like to commend both of them for a job well done on that one, and it cleared up six auto break-ins that day. And we haven't had one since then, I don't think. So,
Thank you. Got it? All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. Marie?
Yes. The third item on your opening remarks is a new award that we have created, which we're calling the Mayor's Good Samaritan Awards. We do have a number of them recognizing individuals and businesses that really went above and beyond the call of duty and assisting us and assisting our public safety department, especially as we fought the snowstorm. We do have a number of them, and we have the Brookhaven Luxury Rentals and Residences. They provided the city with a luxury condo furnished for officers to sleep in. Ann Pegrin is here to accept that award. And I'll just go through the list, and then, Mayor, we can call them up individually. Also, Hudson Grill, Brookhaven, they provided food and drink to us. Wally Bruton provided that service to us. Georgia Commerce Bank, Fred Andrew, provided the branch's conference room for the police department to occupy, to get out of the weather, be able to do their reports, and be able to use the restroom. Terry Nerod, Holiday Inn Perimeter, provided rooms at the hotel for city staff and police officers during the storm. And what we were doing when we were gauging and getting geared up for the storm, we brought in our officers early to the shift so that they could be in town and ready to change that. Tracy Nerod, thank you, to change shifts, and then those officers coming off shift were able to have a place to rest, because once the snow and the ice hit, there was not any leaving town. So we do appreciate that. Gary Mosner, Costco Brookhaven, this manager committed to us that he would open the doors to us to provide whatever we needed to supply our warming stations that we had, to take care of our police officers. And this gentleman slept at Costco for 72 hours. Not sleeping total 72, but he was there 72 hours ready to open the door whenever we knocked. Brad Middlebrook constantly was there back and forth getting supplies, so we're very appreciative of that. And our last one is Brookhaven Papa John's, store number 773, Christopher Johnson, who provided pizzas for our police officers. So we were well taken care of.
Well, I just want to say this Good Samaritan Award is the first time we've done this, but I know we all witnessed selfless acts during the ice storm, and we know our citizens have this in their DNA, which is comforting. But to know that your businesses do as well is very special. And for these businesses to open their doors and their hearts in the way they did, free of charge, is really a testament to the quality of businesses we have in Brookhaven. So I'd like to give a hand to everybody who's on this list. After I announce all their names, we'll do it all together if you don't mind. But so if Miss Pegram would come up, the one that had the Gavel Gang kids, I'll give you your. I'll step around here in a second. Ms. Pegram is from Brookhaven Luxury Rentals and Residences. There you go. Thank you.
You want to stay up here?
Georgia Commerce Bank, Fred Andrew, is he here? And they were formerly Brookhaven Bank, correct?
That is correct.
All right, that's right. Still a Brookhaven Bank, which is good.
That's what I call it.
I know Papa John's and the Hudson Grill, I think the managers are on duty tonight, so they couldn't be here. So these are we'll accept them on their behalf. And that's Christopher Johnson of Papa John's and Wally Brunton from Hudson Grill. Is Gary Mosner here from the Brookhaven Costco?
No, he's not.
Okay. But Costco's here. I'm an executive member. Is Tracy Nyrode or Nerode from Holiday Inn Perimeter? Is that Nyrode or Nerode?
Nerode.
Nerode.
Oh,
Okay.
excuse me.
Thank you. You want to sit down here, please? If we could all give these folks a round of applause. Appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you very much again.
Thank you so much. Good to see you.
Thank you. Hope we don't ever become too bored with little ceremonies like these, because if you want to encourage great behavior, you always have to thank and recognize it. So that's a very important principle to me. All right. Anything else? Okay, agenda announcements.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, if we may, we'd like to amend the agenda to add 2 resolutions. Mr. Gebbia could at least announce those resolutions, and we can then put those under new business. And that would be
Resolution
other
support.
business. Other business. We can put it under other business as items 2 and 3.
You want me to announce that now?
The resolution numbers, yeah, please.
Yeah. It'll be in support for resolutions number 2014-02-01. It's for House Bill number 964 in reference to charter schools. The second one is resolution number 2014-02-02 for HB 804, and it has to do with sexual exploitation.
Protection of those who have been
Protection of those who have been violated. Yes, thank you.
All right. Is there a motion on the floor?
I move that we amend the agenda as stated by Councilman Gebbia.
A second?
Any discussion? All in favor of amending the agenda signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Now there needs to be another motion to adopt the resolutions, correct? All right.
That'd be under other business.
Okay, all right.
Business would be-
Right. All right. Anything else on
No.
the agenda announcements? Okay. Thank you, Joe. Public comment. This is the section where the public can comment about anything that's on the agenda. If you want to come on down, do you have any names yet for the first?
We'll call
Okay.
Brian Fossetto. Brian,
Brian, how do you spell that last name?
Faucetle. Sorry, I have that handwriting. It's Brick Fawcett, actually.
Brick Fawcett.
Yes, sir.
Uh,
Mayor, City Council.
Can you pull the microphone to you so we, thank you.
Can you hear me a little better now?
Up. There you go.
There we go. I just wanted to make a couple of comments. I run a kickball league here in the city. After the city of Brookhaven took over the parks from DeKalb, I know there's been a lot of transition there with positions, acquiring the fields and such. It's getting a little more difficult to access field space. We're currently being put on hold for the spring season, and I'm not really getting anywhere. I wanted to seek your advice, also make you aware of the situation, so that we might be able to provide the service for the city that we have been in the past.
Okay, what is it, if you could just further explain what are your needs and what you've done to try to acquire space, and so we can know?
I've been in works with Eric Stipe, Ingrid, who I believe is no longer with at the current position. I've tried contacting Ray. sending emails. We actually had contracts in place and we're about to sign for the upcoming spring season. And then when Ray's hire was announced, it was put on hold until they could figure out what the plan would be for the parks for the spring season. It's my understanding that Brookhaven may want to run their own adult sports programs and such, but none of that has been communicated to me. Currently, I'm just in a holding pattern right now to get field space to continue to run the leagues that we have been in the past.
Marie, do you have any
Yes,
comment about this?
I do, and I'm aware of his needs and requests, and I have had a conversation with Mr. Holloway. He will be gotten in touch with by Ray tomorrow. What we are doing, and I think this is a good segue just to make this announcement. Of course, all of the council members know, as well as many people in the community, but we are about to engage a firm to move forward and create and develop our Parks and Recreation Master Plan, whereby we're going to look at every one of our parks. We're going to classify those parks as to regional, neighborhood, those classifications. And then we're engaging the community through an appointed steering committee of a number of people representing different neighborhoods in the community, where we can take a look at what uses are best for those parks, and then also what needs are necessary to identify and improve in order to facilitate the Parks and Recreation programming that the community wants. What we are doing right now is, and I want to make this statement, when we talk about bringing the programming under the city's realm, what we mean by that is we will work hand in hand with end users, providers, the vendors themselves, with this gentleman here that can provide a professionally run kickball program. We will work with them to enter into a contract to provide that service, and in that contract it will state what we expect of them, and what they will provide in return for that, and where their field will be, what their practice times will be, and when their game times will be, and even the term of the season. So that will be identified, and what we're doing is we are moving towards contracts with each of these vendors. It is not the city's intent that we're going to hire our own gymnast, that we're going to hire our own kickball league leader, that we're not going to hire our own potter for pottery classes or whatever the courses and programs may be. What we're saying is we are going to control those programs because we need to know where those programs need to go in which park and what park would best serve that type of use, so we can be sure that we have the facilities up to a point where it can fully accommodate that need. So this year is a transition year. I mean, we don't even own the parks yet. We're very close to acquiring those parks and taking under full ownership. In our transition period this year, we're going to work with as many vendors who have been operating under the DeKalb system as we can. Part of the problem has been trying to identify who they all are, because unlike this gentleman who does have a history of using the parks and entering into a contract with the county, which now will be with the city, we have a lot of people that just show up and operate a program absent permission. And the issue with that is liability, because once the city takes full ownership, we are liable. If somebody breaks an ankle, yes, they're going to go first to the vendor who provided that, but if we're negligent and that the park is not up to par that could have accommodated that, then we have questions to answer on that. So I would ask the public and the vendors and even the participants to have a little patience. We have a brand new Parks and Recreation director who is a one-man band right now. He receives hundreds of emails, and he's trying to respond to each one of those. He has the character and personality that he does like to meet with people individually that are bringing these programs, and to see exactly what their need is, who their constituency, who are the people that are using this, and do we need to provide more fields or more space for them. So there really is like a pre-interview process so that there's a better understanding of the city. Our goal by this summer, early fall, is to have our own program guide, whereby we will list all of these programs and will assist in the registration of these activities. But we're going to contract out with the vendors themselves that do this every day. And it's not our intent to hire all of these individuals that will run or lead these programs themselves. But we have to have some sense of order. We have to know what's happening within our facilities and, what cost there, is to us to accommodate that use, and what fee is fair and proper for citizens to be charged.
So we're aware that Kickball 365 had utilized fields in the past
Yes.
in Brookhaven?
Yes.
Blackburn Park.
At Blackburn Park?
Yes,
Okay.
right. And in addition to all of that, we're also inspecting every one of our facilities. As you recall, as we were getting ready to acquire and take over the operational side of the parks, we went out and we inspected all of the grounds of the parks under their national parks and recreation standards for playgrounds and equipment. Now we're going inside the buildings to be sure that they are safe for participants to use them. We
Right.
want to be sure the toilets flush. We want to be sure the lights work. We want to be sure the facilities are clean and they're operational. So we are moving on that. Our own inspection team, Safe Build, is doing that work for us. We expect that job will be completed in the next few weeks. So it's not our intent to slow anybody down.
Let me ask this, since this spring registration is, I guess it's now or right on the corner.
Right.
Could we do, after Ray meets with them, maybe a status quo for just this year for
Oh, absolutely.
So since Ray's here, maybe after he leaves the podium, they could go in the back for a couple
Well, I'm
minutes.
sure they could go right back there right
Right.
now.
Rick, do you know who Ray is?
If they would.
No, I'm not.
Ray, raise your hand. There he is. May I for a second? Since you're here, I don't think most people, or some people may not really be familiar with Kickball 365, but tell us, how many members do you have participating in Blackburn?
So we run one day a week. It's a Tuesday night league. We get between 125, 150 people per night. Afterwards, we contract out with a local restaurant
Right.
as a social meet and greet. And we support local businesses through that. We've got a great relationship with Old Blind Dog. Kobe Keller's been great.
Pub 71?
Yeah, Pub 71.
Yes.
Been there with the other kickball organization.
Right.
But yes, we do support the community.
Now, this is a Brookhaven-based organization, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you operate actually beyond Brookhaven?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So I've heard from the business community after your events, they really count on what you provide.
Yes, sir.
I mean,
And
it's significant.
to keep you updated, I actually run it's a one-stop of the 16 national tournament circuit
Right.
here in Atlanta as well. Coming next March, permits, I guess, permitting. We're expecting 41 teams from across the country to come in to Brookhaven to help our businesses and hopefully participate at the parks that we're currently using.
Yeah, this is huge.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so this is a great example of Brookhaven people using Brookhaven parks
Well,
and
yeah.
then benefit the economy in Brookhaven. So I applaud you for what you
And his
do.
unfortunate circumstance just happened to coincide with the transition into hiring, and
Yes, sir.
Ray doesn't have an assistant yet, and we need to get him an
Right,
assistant.
he's searching right now.
Yeah, everything else would be great. That we actually did operate one season with Eric Stipe, and that was perfect. And then I guess once Ray's hiring, it kind of threw a wrench in there,
Right.
Which I totally understand. I
Right.
appreciate you helping me out.
All right, well, thank you
Thank you, Rick, for coming
Hopefully
up.
we'll get an answer for you
tonight.
October.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you. Real quickly, I wanted to echo Rebecca's comment, first of all. But secondly, my neighborhood has recently formed a neighborhood association. The Kendrick Osborne neighborhoods, we have never had a neighborhood association. We've had events ever since I've lived there, since 1990. Had an awesome Halloween block party this past fall. Would it be appropriate for me to ask the directors of our organization to stand?
Sure.
Sure.
Do you guys mind standing? So we're going to have these are interim directors. We'll have our first meeting, but we would like to ask you to help us make our neighborhood the best it can be.
What's the name of your association?
It's called the Kendrick Osborne Neighborhood Association, KONA.
Kona. All right.
Can your directors just identify themselves quickly so
The
we can
names?
hear their name at once?
Sure, my name is Baxter Thompson.
Baxter
I live
Thompson.
in Kendrick with Joe Mosier, I live on Kendrick.
Joe Mosier,
Shane Murphy, who lives 1303 Kendrick.
Jay Murphy,
Shane, yes.
and Shane.
And Dave Bars.
Dave Bars, I'm sorry.
Yeah. And I live on Osborne, and we're going to have a few other folks
All right.
on Osborne joiner.
Well, that's a great.
Well, congratulations on starting that.
Congratulations.
All right.
Nothing like
Thank
a
you.
good zoning fight to get you organized.
Yeah. All right. Next.
Ronnie Mayer.
All right, Ronnie.
In my Brookhaven t-shirt.
All right.
There you go.
Looking good tonight. A little dirty because I worked all day long. I want to thank City of Brookhaven for doing a great job during the ice storm. The only one we left out was Ramirez Tree. We had him on standby just in case anything fell. But everybody did such a great job. Everybody, they stayed home. I like how the governor of North Carolina said, you put on your stupid hat, you go drive. You stay home, you put on your smart cap. So what he said sort of stuck in everybody's mind just the way that he said it. And I appreciate everybody just really doing a fantastic job. I still see in every newspaper article, the pink pony, pink pony, pink pony. I want y'all
good cop, bad cop.
Yeah,
Always start off with
I
something
want
good.
y'all to spend some time on this urban camping law. We need to get it, quit playing with it. We need to get it enacted. We wouldn't have had that real big fire this morning if we'd had that urban camping law. If you would want to sleep late one morning, come ride with me at about 3:30 in the morning, any night, Friday, Saturday night, look at all the homeless people roaming our streets. And this is not even the group of homeless people down at Buford Highway and Druid Hills. The city of Brookhaven does not have any place to house these people. But there are about 8 or 10, 15 of them every night out there just roaming. We need to find a place like out of Brookhaven really for them. If we could afford a house for them here in Brookhaven, it'd be a different story, but we can't. So we need that urban camping law to give our officers a little teeth to get rid of them. You can talk to 4 or 5 of our officers and they'll tell you 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, they're walking everywhere. I see them late at night, and it's just that we need to work on that urban camping law. And I need to get with Rebecca after the meeting. We're almost going to run out of planting time. I've still got those 65 to 70 beautiful crepe myrtle trees that we need to plant on Peachtree between the Waffle House and Osborne Road, so to beautify that. And we're working on the front of the new City Hall. So I guess if we do some work, me and Rebecca together, maybe some year I'll get a plaque saying Ronnie Mayer with a green thumb. Thank you, y'all. Good evening.
Actually, I want to thank Ronnie for he brought out his crews and pulled out the kind of ratty old landscaping in the planters in front of the new building that's going to be our City Hall, and brought in a truck with a crane and pulled out some ratty old tree bush in front, and things happen fast when you've got Ronnie Mayer on your team. We've put in a bunch of great planting soil, and I'm kicking myself that we didn't get out there this last weekend and got those plants in because we've got cold weather coming. But you and I have a date.
All right. Tom, we did discuss urban camping.
Yeah,
I just want to clarify.
That's part of the Chapter 16 ordinance.
Right. I just want to clarify for the record that, I appreciate Ronnie's colorful language, but Brookhaven does not endorse getting rid of any homeless people. So I've talked about this before, is trying to find help first and then before we deal with that problem. But we are going to have an urban camping law adopted, and we understand the problems that come from that underpass and that railroad area, all that. And I'm not sure if they've narrowed the cause of the fire down to one of those folks, but if it's, and that could be. So, all right, thank you. Any more comments? Daniel?
I've received no more comment cards for this period.
All right, anybody else have any public comment for this section? We'll have another one later. All right, thank you. All right, public comment is closed. Consent agenda?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we have 7 items on the consent agenda, which we reviewed during our work session.
Councilman Iyer has some changes to some of the minutes he'd like to submit or talk about real quick.
I can make it part of the motion. There's word changes. Riff-raff should have been rip-rap and from or form. Anyway, they're simple word changes.
Just want to submit it as part of the record. We'll just reference that in your motion.
I'd like to move that we approve the consent agenda and include the few minor changes that I had from the various minutes, and I'll give a copy of this to the clerk for her reference.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor of adopting the consent agenda as stated by Councilman Iyer, signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, consent agenda is adopted. Announcements, Marie?
No announcements.
I have, yes. I want to just make a quick announcement about what I think is a very exciting project that I've been working on, and I felt like that it was time to share it with the public. In our discussions with the folks who were running the Peachtree Road signal synchronization, the PTOP program that's actually funded by GDOT. You get to know all these acronyms, but that's obviously the Georgia Department of Transportation. We started talking about the bottleneck that is really, I think, one of the worst bottlenecks in all of Brookhaven, and it's in my district, right at the intersection of Ashford-Dunwoody and Johnson Ferry Road. And I was made aware of a transportation study that had been done fairly recently by the transportation company of Kinley Horn, which actually came up with quite a nifty solution. Well, let me call it at least an immediate Band-Aid for a really bad problem that we could implement. We decided we could implement it sooner rather than later. The beauty of this is that it's really a combination of restriping and changing the signals a little bit. What it will do is by, if you're familiar with that intersection, as you're coming south on Ashford-Dunwoody Road, like if you're coming from Marist or the mall, you know that you have to get down to one lane to go forward. And so what this would do is we would simply remove, there's two medians in that intersection right now. There's a tree and there's some utility stuff in there, which I'll talk about that utility stuff in a minute. But simply by moving those medians out and restriping, what this solution would do is allow 2 lanes going forward through the light at Ashford-Dunwoody, and then over on Johnson Ferry, where again, if you've ever sat backed up on that road in traffic, right now there's a right turn only from Ashford-Dunwoody onto Johnson Ferry, and there's kind of a long right turn lane only into the Kroger. So you've actually got 3 lanes there available to you. So simply by restriping, you could again, instead of just 1 lane, drip, 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 going 1 car at a time going through that intersection, you could actually have 2 lanes going through. Now, as you know, once you get into that little section there of between the light and then the next light, you've actually got 2 lanes, and then the road splits, and you go either Ashford-Dunwoody or Johnson Ferry. And I think most of us would agree the traffic eases up once you get through that bottleneck. Well, it only makes sense because we really, off of both roads, we have 30,000 cars a day going through there. So we've been talking about this, and in talking to GDOT, which is very interested in trying to move traffic along these corridors, well, they've agreed to pay for these improvements. And so they priced it out, and it came out to be about $289,000. And so GDOT said, we've got it in our budget that we could pay for the restriping, the resignalization, if the city of Brookhaven could get the utilities moved that are on this median. And so our Public Works Department has initiated some efforts to start working with, there's a power pole, and I'm told that there's some underground vaults of gas and water, I believe. And so it's not by any means impossible. It's, they will move it, and we'll expedite it and pay for it and make sure it all gets done correctly. But here's the really exciting part of it. So Kinley Horn, which is the transportation study group, they did a study as to how this one here, let me give you these, and I've got a larger map here if you'd like to really look at it. It's the initial drawings. There would be some other minor improvements made too, with restriping. GDOT is also anxious to add a bona fide left turn lane going into Perimeter Summit. As you're going north towards the mall on Ashford-Dunwoody Road, they're prepared to add a left turn lane there, which if you work up in the mall area, you know that in the morning that's a big backup area. The other improvement we would that they've already been talking about making is on Donaldson. If you live in one of those neighborhoods back off of Donaldson and you've tried to get out onto Ashford Dunwoody in the morning, you are probably very frustrated because that light only holds for a very short time and a lot of people are turning left and you're trying to turn right. So again, the traffic engineers have determined that we could make this a right turn only lane and then a through lane. So right now you either have to go, it's either right and through or left. So again, by some simple restriping, we think we can make some major improvements in moving the traffic. But let me just give you this number that they've come up with. And again, this is from a traffic study, but on the southbound lane coming down Ashford Dunwoody Road to that Johnson Ferry intersection, right there by the Valero, they currently estimate that the delay per car is 143 seconds per car. And they think that these, by making these improvements of the restriping and adding really what will be a double lane going each way, would reduce that time to 43 seconds. So that's a good minute, per car. Now just think about that, 30,000 cars a day. Now that may not seem like a whole lot of time, but actually if I sat at that intersection the other day for 20 minutes, so I actually think that the numbers are far worse. But if you think about 30,000 minutes a day saved, I mean, it's in a sense, it's about a 70% reduction in the delay. So I think that's even more significant than the DDI, and everybody thought the DDI was a great improvement. So we think the time frame on this is probably, design work is pretty much going to start. And we're going to continue to work right now on moving these utilities. And we think that by this summer, we can start making some of these improvements. But our thinking was that we still are launching our master transportation plan, but we felt like if we had an immediate fix, why wouldn't we go ahead and bring it forward now when we could really ease some of the frustration for all those tens of thousands of people who go through that light every day. So we think it can be implemented sooner rather than later. And actually, I think it's going to be quite helpful to feed that information into the master plan to see, in fact, if it's a significant fix or whether it is, in fact, just a Band-Aid fix and we need to look at something larger. But I feel quite certain that if there's something larger, it would be many years down the road. So I'm quite optimistic that, and I'm here to tell you tonight that I think there's going to be some relief on the way at that intersection.
Right, so we'll take this bigger map, and Daniel, if you'll put it on that back table back there, people can look at it as they want to during the meeting or as they leave. But thank you for Rebecca for that. I know you've been looking at this for quite a while, and it was. Okay, all right. So thank you for taking this one by the horn, because we all know that's a big problem area, and this does seem like a pretty inexpensive, simple fix. And
well, it's such a nice win-win for the city because really the state is going to pick up the bulk of the cost, and
right.
We'll have it sooner rather than later.
All right, thank you. All right, we are. Any more announcements? Okay, I did have one announcement. This sign here, you might start seeing them around town, but a gentleman named Stan Sands, who lives in the capital city, has organized a golf tournament for the benefit of the police department's families, for scholarship money for the families. And if you want to play in the golf tournament, it's Monday, April 7th, 2014, and if you register, you get one of these signs to put up in your yard. But it's a wonderful cause. It's been put together very quickly and very professionally by Mr. Sands and some capital city folks and historic Brookhaven folks. And I want everybody to, there's a website for this, is there not? Bates, if you would mention it.
Yeah, you can actually access it on the City of Brookhaven's website. It's on our homepage, brookhavenga.gov.
And you can see it live streaming right now there, too. But it's a very worthy cause, and it's the first annual event. They'll have more in the future, but we appreciate the efforts of the people involved in that.
And they're also still looking for businesses who want to sponsor. Sponsorships of holes start as low as $500.
All right. They've got several signed up already, though, haven't they?
Yeah, I believe that.
All right. And let's see, reports and presentations.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. The first item is to give you an update on the zoning map audit. As I mentioned earlier this evening, we have started the work. We expect that Phase 1, which is the capturing of the data and inventory of that data, will be completed in 90 days or less. So we will keep you briefed on that, but we're excited to have started the project already. And the Community Development Department is getting weekly reports and updates, so it is being monitored very closely as we gather the data, and starting off with going back through the minutes of the Board of Commissioners, and we've looked at the data of the early 1950s as our point of beginning.
Thank you. All right. City Hall update?
Yes, City Hall update. Excited to inform you all that the final space allocation plan has been completed, and our move-in date is the weekend of March the 31st. We expect that we will be moving in, and HIT Construction, who is the contractor for Delta Life Insurance, who owns the building, is providing their contractor to do the work for us, and work is to begin in the first. They've already removed, there was some asbestos and mold in the building. That has been removed. The next point will be the installation of the sprinkler system and taking down some walls and building out offices for us. So we're excited about that and looking forward to packing very soon and moving to a more permanent home.
All right. Parks purchase update.
We expect March 11th, that council date, that we'll be back before you with the purchasing of all of the city parks. We are grouping all of them together except for one, and that's the Brookhaven Park, which will be a standalone purchase. We're doing the environmental assessment now on all the parks. Our recreation director has been meeting with that firm, and the title search has been done by a real estate attorney through the direction of Tom Curry. That work has been completed, and we see that we will not have anything that will inhibit us from coming back to you on March 11th with that purchase.
All right. Thank you. Old business.
Old business. This is a resolution to transmit a legislative package to Representative Mike Jacobs, and the purpose of which is to introduce legislation to enable the city of Brookhaven to operate under the redevelopment powers law for the city, to look at areas in the city that have opportunities for redevelopment that have been stagnant or blighted, underserved or underdeveloped, whereby development activity can occur through what's called a tax allocation district, basically tax increment financing. This is not a tax that will be placed or assessed on any properties. This is only for redevelopment. Buford Highway is an area that we expect to be able to meet the criteria of this. A referendum will be held for the citizenry to approve the powers for the city. In order for us to do this, the General Assembly has to pass legislation to enable the city to do this. So once that's done, and if the referendum passes, then we'll come back to the mayor and council with a development plan for redevelopment opportunities within a described geographic boundary.
And this is not a tax
Not a
increase.
tax.
Okay. Thank you.
Of any kind.
All right. All right. Any other comments or questions? Okay. Motion?
I move that we adopt Resolution 2014-01-02, resolution for the legislative package submittal.
Is there a second?
I second.
Any discussion? All in favor of adoption of the resolution signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, resolution passes. And Joe, also, if you'll note for the other resolutions we did, to email those sponsors so they can have that in the morning for their,
Sure.
to know that we passed a resolution in
It's the
support
same
of us.
sponsor for both.
Yes, okay, great. All right, public hearing items.
Yes. Mayor, there's a number of rezoning cases, the first of which is RZ 13-11, SLUP 13-01, and SLUP 13-02. Ms. Cannon is here to present.
Go ahead.
Mayor and Council has indicated this is rezoning petition RZ 1311, special land use permit 1301, and special land use permit 1302. The Planning Commission first heard this case in January, and due to inclement weather, it has been reset. I think this is the third time. And I would note for the record that we did receive a letter from the applicant this morning asking for deferral. Having said that, they have asked for the deferral until April 22nd to appear back before the council. However, based on our current regulations, we are required to hold a public hearing. And before I go into the staff report that I will try very quickly to condense, and I do stipulate to the staff report, there are a few dates that I need to throw out, so it can be very confusing, so I'm going to try to say these kind of slowly. If the council grants the deferral for the city council hearing to be held on April 22nd, and if the council remands this back to the Planning Commission for an additional public hearing, then the corresponding Planning Commission hearing date would be April 2nd. If the deferral is granted by the council and remanded back to the Planning Commission, the staff would ask that all revised information be submitted no later than March the 10th.
We're just confirming that the mayor did, in fact, formally open the public hearing.
Yeah, it's a public hearing.
Correct, I know. That's what we said. Thank you.
If the case is not deferred, if the case is deferred by the council but not remanded back to the Planning Commission, and if you do continue forward with the deferral till April 22nd, we would ask in that regard that all updated materials be submitted no later than March 31st. As I present this report with case 1311 and the special land use permits, I'm going to present it to you collectively, but any action taken on each one of these cases would need to be dealt with separately. This is the application of Ashford Green, John Hancock Life Insurance Company as both the project name, applicant, and owner. The property is located at 4170 Ashford Dunwoody Road and 4106 Lake Hearn Drive. The property is located in land lot 329 and 330 in the 18th District, and the site contains 18.33 acres. The property is currently zoned OI conditional, office institution, and the proposed zoning is OI institution, along with a request for a special land use permit to allow for multifamily and to exceed the height limit within the OI district. The current land use designation for the area is regional center, and the owner's intent is to develop a mixed-use development consisting of 500 multifamily units and 250,000 square feet of office space and 3 parking decks. The subject property is bounded on the west side of Ashford Dunwoody Road and is bounded by Lake Hearn Drive and Interstate 285 to the north, Parkside Place to the west, and Perimeter Summit Parkway to the south. The site was originally rezoned office institutional conditional pursuant to a case in DeKalb County, and through the years there have been several alterations to the plan and conditions applicable to the property, with the latest alteration in the county in 1997. Currently, the subject property is entitled as approved by the county for 715,000 square feet of total net usable office space, inclusive of an existing office building of 215,000 square feet of net usable area, and additional 500 square feet distributed among 2 office buildings, with one of the buildings extending to 18 stories in height and having an associated 8-level parking deck. The applicant tonight seeks to rezone from OI office institution to OI to change conditions and to implement a mixed-use project that would consist of 500 multifamily units spread over 2 5-story high-rise complexes, 250,000 square feet of additional office space contained in a single 10-story office building in lieu of a former 18-story office building, in addition to an existing 277,206 square foot office building. As of November 25th, 2013, the Atlanta Regional Commission determined that a DRI, Development of Regional Impact Review, was not warranted, as the 1991 DRI review was more intense and it was applicable to the property. The subject property currently contains a single office building. The applicant's letter of intent indicates that it's a 5-story building. Along with the office building, there are 917 surface parking spaces. According to the applicant, existing surface parking is shared with the Hilton Garden Inn Hotel located northwest of the property, and shared parking provisions will be continued to be maintained with the conversion of surface parking to parking decks. Based on the land title survey, it would appear that the property is serviced by several stormwater facilities that lead to off-site detention across Parkside Place to the southwest and north of Lake Kern Drive, and a private stormwater vault located to the northwest of Parkside Place. The site plan submitted by the applicant shows several surface parking spaces, with the majority of the parking provided within 3 proposed separate parking decks. Each multifamily complex would be developed with a separate parking deck for resident parking. Development A would consist of 260 rental units, and I think if you could put the site plan up on the screen. Development A would consist of 260 rental units with an average floor area of 850 square feet per unit. The proposed rental apartment building would be 5 stories and incorporate a 5.5 level parking deck. Development B consists of 240 owner-occupied condo units with a 5-story building with a 5.25 level parking deck. It would appear that residential parking decks would be surrounded by the multifamily buildings. And in regard to Development C, is the proposed 10-story, 250,000 square foot office building with a 5.5 level parking deck servicing the office uses on the site. A new ingress-egress point is proposed along Parkside Place, which would be in alignment with Perimeter Summit. According to the square footage of all proposed buildings and the use types, the development would be required to provide 3,109 total parking spaces. The applicant's site plan shows approximately 2,665 parking spaces, which would require a variance through the Zoning Board of Appeals. In addition to applying for the variance to the parking, a variance would also be required for the encroachment of a building in the front yard setback along Ashford Dunwoody Road, and also to deviate from Section 27-788E3, which the extension of 250 feet in length along any wall elevation is prohibited, and that would be a building mass and scale consideration that would need to be reviewed by the Zoning Board of Appeals. The comprehensive plan indicates the area is suited for regional center character, of which this proposal does comply with. The subject property is located in close proximity to Interstate 285 and a major commercial node. The proposed request would be compatible with existing uses found in the immediate area, as Perimeter Summit has been developed with a mixed-use concept incorporating office, commercial, and residential uses with a single development. It does appear, however, that the property does have economic use as currently zoned. Given the mixed use of commercial, office, residential uses found nearby, the proposed rezoning does not appear to result in a use that would adversely affect the existing use or usability of adjacent or nearby property. In regard to supporting grounds for the proposal, the proposed mixed-use development would be aligned with the comprehensive plan. This calls for a reduction in height of buildings from 18 stories to 10 stories. The area is identified in the Perimeter Center Livable Center Initiative Study, which was completed in 2002. And that study identified the area as a potential location for high-density mixed-use development with primarily office and higher-density residential uses. Additionally, the site is located within the Perimeter Community Improvement District. We were not aware of any historic building sites, districts, or archaeological resources identified by the applicant to be on or near the property. To date, the City of Brookhaven has not received a response from DeKalb County offices. However, we did receive, subsequent to the Planning Commission, a report from the DeKalb County school system. The school system indicated that the proposal would have minimal effect on Chamblee High and Chamblee Middle, but it will add to overcrowding at Montgomery Middle School. The projected additional students is in the amount of 61, and that it may require an additional mobile unit to accommodate that request. In regard to the special land use permit, there are 20 criteria that have to be considered by the council, and I'm going to go through those briefly because they are noted in the staff report, and some of them are repeated from the zoning language, and I will not repeat those. We do feel that the subject property would be of adequate size. The proposed development would be compatible with existing uses found in the area. Previous approvals of the subject property for high-density office use would suggest that adequate public services are available to serve the proposed development as submitted. The applicant will be conditioned to provide a traffic impact analysis to be reviewed by the City Public Works Director and for appropriate traffic improvement measures. Based on trip generation provided by the applicant, the traffic generated by the proposed development during AM and PM peak hours will be comparable to or less than the development that had been previously approved by the county. Multiple points of access would be provided on the subject property, which would enhance internal traffic flow and access by emergency vehicles. And staff would note that the DeKalb County Fire Marshal, which is now the City of Brookhaven Fire Marshal, would be required to review and approve the flow for emergency ingress and egress prior to issuance of any permits. The proposed use would not have adverse impacts upon adjoining lands associated with noise, smoke, odor, dust, or vibration. The proposed mixed-use development would not create adverse impacts to adjoining land use by reasons of hours of operation, as the proposed use would incorporate a residential component and office uses similar to existing uses found nearby. The proposed use would be similar in a manner of operation with existing uses found in the area. It appears the proposed development would be consistent with the requirements of the zoning district, with the exception of parking requirements and the setback along Ashford-Dunwoody Road, and the applicant has applied for 2 special land use permits to exceed district height requirements to construct high-rise apartments. All required buffer zones appear to have been provided. Refuse and service area locations have not been identified. However, such a plan would be required to be approved by DeKalb County. Time or duration constraints would not be appropriate for the proposed request, as the requested special land use permits are related to permanent structures and buildings. The height of proposed buildings would be substantially lower than what is currently approved for on the subject property and nearby buildings. The size and scale of the buildings proposed would be consistent with adjacent lots and buildings. A variance will be required, as indicated, to consider the demonstrated multifamily building mass. Negative shadow impact would not be anticipated from this request, as all buildings proposed would be of similar height and projection. The proposed use would benefit the surrounding area by providing the availability of additional residential options and reduce the proliferation of similar office uses found in the area. Additionally, the Perimeter Center Livable Centers Initiative study completed in 2002 identified the need for more residential use to be provided in the immediate area of the subject property. The Public Works Department did ask for a traffic impact study and the installation of appropriate stormwater management systems and the stormwater facility maintenance agreement for post-construction. The Brookhaven Police Department indicated that there will be a requirement to monitor the needs to determine whether future needs for police service or additional personnel are needed. MARTA indicated that they are in the early stages of exploring and investigating the feasibility of expanding services in the perimeter area, and that this time MARTA does not foresee any adverse impact to service or real estate holdings due to this development. The staff has recommended approval of this request with 19 conditions. I'm not going to read all the conditions. Paraphrased, it basically is the site plan, the units, the square footage as proposed, exterior elevations of the multifamily buildings and associated parking decks shall be constructed primarily of a combination of natural stone, masonry, brick, glass, and stucco. The balance may be of brick or wood accents, trim, or decorations. All elevations shall be subject to review and approval of the department prior to the issuance of a building permit. Parking facilities for high-rise apartments shall be located at the interior of the subject property and be surrounded by the associated apartment building and landscaping materials so as to screen parking facilities from view of the right-of-way, except where left open for vehicular or pedestrian access. Service and refuse facilities shall be located interior of the subject property and must be screened with opaque fencing or similar building materials. Lighting shall be installed to direct away from single-family residential dwellings. Signage at the tops of buildings shall be directed away from residential properties to the south beyond Perimeter Summit Parkway. A combination plat is required. The owner-developer shall be required to cure any nonconformity from a lot dimensional aspect through the Zoning Board of Appeals. We've asked for an additional dedication of right-of-way along the total property frontages of Ashford Dunwoody Road, Perimeter Summit Parkway, and Parkside Place for a minimum width of 12.5 feet from the back of the curb of any new curb and gutter along these roadways. Owner-developer shall dedicate additional right-of-way for a miter at the intersection of Ashford Dunwoody Road and Perimeter Summit Parkway. Owner-developer shall widen Ashford Dunwoody Road between the northernmost site driveway on Ashford Dunwoody and Perimeter Summit Parkway, such that the existing outside southbound lane on Ashford Dunwoody Road coming from I-285 connects continuously to the existing right lane at Perimeter Summit Parkway. A traffic impact analysis is required. Results of the traffic impact analysis shall require that the owner-developer incorporate such conditions coming from the impact analysis. Stormwater requirements as required by the city. Compliance with stormwater management. And that's the summary of the 19 conditions. The Planning Commission recommended deferral of this request during their public hearing and asked that if the council does defer it, that they please remand it back to them for an additional public hearing. And that completes the staff report.
Susan, can I just ask you on the numbers you just gave for the impact from the school system? They were slightly different than the numbers on the report you gave us.
I'm not. Let me look at the.
Is there a different report?
There shouldn't be. I believe what the report says is minimal effect on Chamblee middle and high.
Right.
In elementary, it says that it will exacerbate overcrowding, and I think it was the number was 61.
Well, on here it says it's a total of 28 to Montgomery, and then it's a total of 50 students at all three schools.
Susan.
Yes.
Susan.
Oh, thank you.
I just didn't know if you had a different report or an updated report.
I was looking at the current condition.
Right.
I was looking at the current condition. I apologize.
Proposed.
So it is just an additional 28 students expected at Montgomery, 9 at Chamblee Middle, and 11 at Chamblee High School.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
So a total of potentially, and again, I don't know how the school system figures this, but maybe we'll get some insight along the way about that too. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question. I don't know, in the public hearing, can I ask questions of the staff? And you may not be able to answer this, but I find it a little bit odd that there would be such a difference. If you have 240 owner-occupied units in condos, and that produces 5 students in Montgomery Elementary, 260 apartment units producing 23 students at Montgomery Elementary. I would say that might be the case for lower-end apartments, but I think it would be dependent upon the quality or the price point of the apartments. I'm just not sure how they calculate, but that's such a huge difference.
Yeah, I'm sure the school board has a formula that they use that has not been shared with us, but I'm
Yeah.
sure they look at the square footage, the location, the number of bedrooms that are there, and what they feel the projection is based on that result.
Was there any relief? Did you ask us already about relief was being sought from the developer on this?
I think we'll hear from the applicant about
Okay, I was
this.
just curious. Can you tell me why they went from 18 to 10 stories? I think you said there was a reduction.
Well, I mean, the county approved 18 stories.
Right.
The applicant proposed 10.
Okay, it was
I'm sure
applicant's choice.
it's applicant's request.
It's probably market-driven.
Right.
Yeah. So at the 10-story level and everything else, the parking at 3,200 going down to 2,600, looking for approval on that. I'm sure there'll be a recommendation coming. No, that's going to ZBA, isn't it?
Based on our current regulations, it would have to go to the zoning board of appeals.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next, we hear from the applicant. The applicant on this, step forward, please. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I'm Doug Dillard, the Wiseman, Noack, Curran, Wilco. We represent the applicant. We have asked for this deferral to enable us to continue our meetings with 3 neighborhood organizations. One is the Montgomery School PTA, and I think they've got a nonprofit or something. We had
Foundation.
a meeting that the mayor and Rebecca came to a couple of weeks ago. We've also met with the Oak Forest neighborhood, and we have also met with
Nancy Creek Heights.
Nancy Creek Heights. We're in the process of submitting agreements with those 3 groups. Obviously, the school issue is an important one. Like you, we're receiving conflicting information from the Board of Education, so we're trying to confirm that. I mean, the number we got was 5. The experience that my clients got on generations of students is less than 2%, both on the rental side and on the ownership side. So we need to try to get our arms around that. But we're meeting with the school and their representatives, and hopefully we can reach some agreement. All of this takes time. We had weather issues that have sort of thrown us askew here. The Planning Commission, when they recommended deferral, they recommended deferral to their next meeting, which is next week. I would like to confirm with Susan and with you exactly what, if you defer it tonight, I think Susan has said that it goes to the end of March into the April agenda, primarily because you've got to re-advertise and that kind of thing. I think that schedule's fine. I mean, we would be pressed to try to come up with agreements between now and next Wednesday or Thursday, whenever that is. So another month is fine with us, and we're certainly hopeful, and we're encouraged by the conversations that we've had thus far with all of the neighborhood associations. So we would ask that you defer it in accordance with the schedule that was laid out by Susan, and please confirm that with me, because Dottie and I are all over the map about when this thing's going to really get up, but we will need, I think, 2 or 3 weeks because we're just now coming around the next week with follow-up meetings with these, and I want to thank Ms. Williams for her participation in helping us identify who we need to be meeting with. So we want to try to have everybody at the table and everybody arm in arm in agreement. So this is a very good project. The applicant is John Hancock. They certainly have the capability of not only building a quality project, but also being a contributing member to the community, which they have been for a long time. And we look forward to working with the neighborhood and trying to work something out. So with that, I would ask that you defer it in accordance with the schedule that Susan laid out for you. If there is opposition, then I want to reserve whatever remaining time I have for rebuttal. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody in opposition, want to speak in opposition to this application? Are any supporters on here and speak in support of the application? All right.
Could I address a question to Mr. Dillard? Doug, I just wanted to clarify. We've talked about this, but as Susan was reading the conditions, it dawned on me that we hadn't really put this in as a condition. I believe we've talked with the developer that 60-some% of the units he expects to be one bedroom or a studio. And I think that was of keen interest to the folks concerned about the crush on the school system. Would you be willing to put that in a condition?
Yes. I think the percentage that they've talked about is a 60-40 split for both the rental and the condos. So I think that would be approved. Sure.
And you do expect these to be fairly high end? Do you know what price?
They do, but I would just caution you don't want to get in a fair housing issue about that. I'm not sure you can put that in the conditions, to be quite honest about it, but I'm just going to tell you that if you look at what this particular applicant has built, they're high on the high end. The per square foot rental rate for this is in keeping with the higher end market throughout the Atlanta region. And the price that they're paying or got to pay to not only build it but for the land is going to require that they be pretty good rents.
And at this point, it's correct that there's no time frame?
Well, they came to me over 6 months ago, and I said it shouldn't take any longer than 6 months, you know?
But I mean, for
so I don't,
their
no, I mean, they're, I'm not going to say they want to be reactive to the market, and they don't want to let the market go away, but no, they're fairly patient and are willing to continue to work with the neighborhood.
And then just clarify one other thing. Remind me, is there any commercial included in this?
There is. I'm glad you brought that up. And I don't know the exact number. For some reason, I think there's somewhere between 60 and 100,000 square feet of retail. And if you look at the site plan, the retail is going to be between and around the base of the residential units, so that they're going to create a village atmosphere with the retail at ground level, and the residential units will be on top. Not unlike what we've tried to do on the north side of Dresden, at Caldwell and in that area where you've got residential on top of retail.
Okay.
Hopefully it'll be on, as you come out on Perimeter Center Parkway, that'll be sort of a village effect, and between the existing building there'll be retail. I don't know exactly where it is, but the retail is going to be focused inward rather than outward to the development, as I understand it.
Does John Hancock intend to continue to own this, or they're bringing a developer in to sell the property?
John Hancock is a subsidiary of Manulife, Jim. I don't know what that corporate structure is, but the applicant is John Hancock.
But they're going to continue to own the entire parcel. They're not going to subdivide it. So
when we zoned this 20 years ago, it was a Hartford site, and Hartford got bought by Hancock. Hancock's been bought by Manulife, so it's been in the family a long time.
Okay.
That's where I first met Doug Dillard. 20 years ago.
Yeah, y'all made me some money out there. Thank you.
Question for staff. Nowhere in the report is there a discussion of 160 to 100,000 square. Were you aware of that, and is that factored into the?
I wasn't aware of that number. However, retail is allowed as an accessory as long as it's in either the office or multifamily building, and it has to be on the ground floor. It's allowed as an accessory to one of those, but it's not standalone commercial zoning. It's part of the office zoning.
Does any of what he described, the village ground floor, does that change your analysis or your recommendations?
No, sir.
Your conditions?
No, sir.
Okay.
Well, I'd say I'm happy to defer this. This is one of the largest developments we've looked at. It's an important development, but it's a big development. And as we've just been talking about, traffic on Ashford Dunwoody's an issue, potential crowding at Montgomery Elementary. There's single-family homes surrounding it across the street on the other side. So I think a deferral is warranted, and I'm happy for it to go back to the Planning Commission to to be vetted further.
Mr. Mayor, just a point of order. We're in the
sorry.
public hearing and we shouldn't have discussion.
Okay, I take all that back.
Any more comment on this application, either for or against? All right. Thank you.
Yeah, just one last thing. I would suggest, Susan, if we're going to have any kind of a deferral vote on this tonight, that you make sure the dates you're consistent with what Doug's expecting. Okay, whatever they are, because there were a whole series and he seemed to be somewhat confused. We're going to put it in the record. Thank you.
All right.
Either way, yeah.
Okay.
All right, so we'll close the public hearing on this application. When there's no other comment, is there a motion?
I move we close the public hearing on rezoning ordinance ID number 12.
We don't have to move to close the public hearing. I just closed it, so it'll be just a motion on the deferral.
Well, then I agree.
No, we don't do that now. We do it later.
Under action.
Action, all right. Next item.
The next item is a rezoning, RZ 13-14, Courtney Dufresne's rezoning request R75 to R50 single family at 1458 Etowah Drive.
Will this one take as long as the other?
No. And that was the condensed version.
Just for the record, DeFreeze.
Thank you. Apologize.
RZ 1314, the application of Courtney Dufresne. He is the applicant and owner and petitioner. The property is located at 1458 Etowah Drive in land lot 238 in the 18th district. The site contains .445 of an acre. The current zoning is R75. The requested zoning is R50. The purpose of the request is to rezone the subject property from R75 to R50 to allow for 3 single-family lots. The Planning Commission heard this request in January, and due to weather, this application, just like the other, was reset twice and is being heard here tonight. The site is surrounded by single-family detached homes immediately adjacent, zoned RA8 to the north, R75 to the south, R75 to the east, and R75 to the west. An R50 district comprised of 3 lots is also located across Oostanala Drive to the northeast. A vacant church zoned R75 is found across Etowah Drive immediately south of the site, located at 1457 Oostanala Drive. The applicant's request to rezone the property to an R50 single-family district, wherein the district allows a minimum lot size of 6,000 square feet and a minimum frontage of 60 feet. Such request will allow the owner to subdivide the property into 3 lots that conform to the R50 district for lot size and frontage. The land use plan calls for traditional neighborhood character, of which this proposal is consistent with. The proposal to rezone the lots from R50 appears to be suitable, as R50 and RA8 zoning districts are found directly north and northeast adjacent to the subject property. Based on the applicant's request to subdivide the parcel, the frontage along Oostanala Drive will result in 3 66.73 feet lot frontages. Such a reduction would conform to the R50 zoning district and would allow for infill development to occur in a pattern consistent to adjacent and nearby properties. It does appear, though, that the property has economic uses currently zoned. It does appear that the single-family proposal will not adversely affect adjacent or nearby properties, and the trend in the Brookhaven Field subdivision is for more compact lot pattern with larger home sizes relative to the lot sizes. There do not appear to be any historic buildings, sites, districts, or archaeological resources identified by the applicant or known by staff or to be on or near this property. To date, the City of Brookhaven has not received a response from DeKalb County or the DeKalb County school system for this particular request. The applicant's proposed development may increase traffic, utility capacity, and school-aged children if fully developed with 3 single-family residences. The Public Works Department had no comment. The Police Department indicated that the development should have no impact on current police services and will not require additional personnel. The staff recommended approval of this request for rezoning with 8 conditions. The Planning Commission recommended approval with an amendment to one of the staff recommended conditions. Paraphrased, the conditions are: approval for up to 3 single-family lots, accordance with the site plan, with any variances required being authorized to be considered by the Zoning Board of Appeals. The corner lot created by the new subdivision shall have at least 75 feet of frontage facing Oostanala Drive. Prior to the issuance of a final plat, the owner-developer shall dedicate sufficient right-of-way along the total property frontage along Etowah Drive and Oostanala Drive to provide for a width of 25 feet from the center line of both right-of-ways. Prior to the issuance of a final plat, the owner-developer shall dedicate sufficient right-of-way for a miter at the intersection of Etowah Drive and Oostanala Drive. Said miter to measure a minimum of 15 feet along each of the named roadways. Prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy for individual lots, the owner-developer shall construct a 5-foot wide sidewalk and 2-foot wide landscape strip along the entire property frontage along Oostanala Drive. Number 7 requires a final plat prior to the issuance of a building permit. And number 8 requires that a building permit for a new house on each lot shall include design and detail of practice that will capture 1 inch of runoff from impervious surfaces to be dissipated through infiltration, evaporation, or evapotranspiration, and be subject to review and approval of the Community Development Department. The condition of language proposed by the Planning Commission is to add a sentence to condition number 6 that indicates that however, the owner-developer shall not be subject to recompense for tree removal related to the sidewalks required by this condition. That completes the staff report.
Okay, is the applicant, or any questions?
Any questions?
Question on that final requirement. If I understand it, they're to hold 1 inch of water on the site and let it either percolate or evaporate, so it's not to be discharged. Am I reading that right, or did I understand that right? Your condition?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That would be correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you. All right. And is the applicant here?
Thank you, Mayor, council members. My name is Courtney DeFries. I own the house actually adjacent to this property. I'm a lifelong resident of Brookhaven, and wanted to talk just for a second about the process and then more specifically about the proposal. Before I brought this process or the proposal to the table here, I met with all the neighbors that surrounded the property, and in the application you'll see that there are 15 signatures from all the property owners, 14, mine would be the 15th, as I live next to the property, who have all expressed no objection to this. And in fairness to them, after 2 deferrals, I said there's nobody that needs to show up for the meeting. I wanted to be respectful of your time and theirs as well. But I believe by their signing the application, that's a nice indication of the process that we took. Met with everybody in advance to talk about how we can better build this area. And everybody, fortunately and kindly, is on board with that. I've been working with an architect who has experience in zoning and working with a builder who has experience with the city of Brookhaven to try to develop a good plan. And I, of course, met with the city planning department. So the process is moving smoothly with the acceptance of Mother Nature, who has kind of screwed things up on me. Just a couple of comments about the proposal itself to put some meat on the bone. It is, of course, consistent with the comprehensive plan that the county put together and the city has currently in place, which allows up to 12 units per acre. I'm looking at 3 units on basically a half an acre. It is, of course, suitable in view of adjacent properties. 1/3 of the properties on my block have smaller lot sizes than what I proposed, including my own house, a smaller lot size than what I proposed. So this is very consistent. I believe a friend of mine described it as, gosh, when you look at the zoning of Brookhaven Fields, it's a checkerboard of zoning. And to be honest, it's one of the things that I like most about my neighborhood is that it's eclectic. It's a village, and it's a walkable community, and that's what's so appealing about it, or a golf cart community, if you prefer. I do take and I would not only point out that 1/3 of the homes have smaller lots on my block, but also 2 houses away are a dozen homes on Canucci that are smaller lots than what I proposed as well. I know that the city, and Susan just said that it does not, that it currently has reasonable economic uses zoned. I would take exception that all of the houses in the as originally platted in 1923, everything was an R50, and I'm looking to do an R50 as well. But everything was an R50 with 50-foot wide lots. At some point, the county came in and said, let's make it an R75. So basically, the majority of the homes in the neighborhood are legally non-conforming. They're 50-foot wide lots and they're R75. In order for me to be on the same playing field with them, I would need to go in for a variance, which would be a different process and one that would be much faster than this if I just wanted to split my two lots back into single lots, as everybody has done, the 50-foot lots. What happened is years ago, the previous owner combined them to save on taxes. So it was two 50-foot lots they combined into one. So I'm not on the same level playing field. I would have to go for variance to be there. Be that as it may, it does not adversely affect any of the adjacent properties. As we've noted, the trend in the neighborhood is larger homes on smaller lots. It's part of the village. It makes it a walkable community. I would note that with this development, we'll have 4 houses on Oostenaula, facing Oostenaula, 5 houses facing Canoochee, 4 houses facing Etowah, and I believe there's 7 or 8 on Appalachia on the backside. So this is very consistent with the block. Building the homes on Oostenaula, facing Oostenaula, creates a stronger neighborhood because if I had built them facing Etowah, it's a steep incline, and whoever owns the house that's on that corner is just going to run a 150-foot long fence, and that creates a great raceway for all the cars going up and down the streets. There'll be no sidewalks, and it won't be that walkable community that we're talking about. Oostenaula it's the one part of the neighborhood that's flat, and so creating the homes on a facing a flat street is much more desirable for the neighborhood. There are no historic homes. There is no infrastructure burden, as we talked about. A clarification, the Planning Commission did approve with that one item, and that was simply a matter of, I'm happy to put the sidewalks in. I think that's a good idea. And we agreed with all of the recommendations that the City Planning Department had come up with, had a nice relationship with them, and thought their recommendations were quite reasonable. The one exception, though, was if the city requires me to put in a sidewalk and take out a tree, I shouldn't have to pay recompense to take out the tree that the city required to do. And both the Planning Department and the Planning Commission agreed, and that's the one amendment that you saw to the proposal. I certainly appreciate and hope that you'll approve my request, and I'll save any time for any questions that you might have or for any comments. I don't believe there's anybody here to support the proposal because I told them they didn't have to come, but there may be some comments.
Is there anybody here to speak in support of the proposal? All right. Okay. You want to speak in support of the proposal? You got to come to the podium and.
That's the probation department.
If he's got the 2 lots and he's going to turn them into 3, and he's going to be able to make a little bit more money here. When I heard tree, I'm like, okay, if you're going to tree compense, that would be a good time for him just if he didn't want to put the trees on his lots. A lot of the builders like to put little trees. We can always take a donation for Briarwood Park for those trees. If we're giving him 3 lots for 2, he's going to make a little more money. And I grew up with his whole family. I hadn't seen him since he was about this big. So Mr. Dufries doesn't really remember me, but I'll take those trees in Briarwood Park. We'd like to have those trees here at Briarwood. So if we do that, it would be a good pat on his shoulder to donate those trees to Briarwood. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else to speak in favor of this application? Hold on.
Is it okay for me to ask a question of the applicant?
Sure.
Yeah, I'd like to ask a question if I could. Courtney.
Ronnie's got to clear out the podium first.
Yeah, you can go ahead and elbow him out of the way. He may be hard to move, though.
We're going back to Skyland School days.
Just so I understand, where is that tree that they're talking about for the sidewalk? Is it on?
There are none specifically. I'll have an arborist come out, and we'll look at what trees, if any, need to come out and how we would do that. Some of them might be, the roots could be okay with the sidewalk, some might not be, and so we'll just have to kind of figure it out
in your discussions with the neighbors or the surrounding neighbors about the sidewalk, what has been the general consensus about the best plan for the sidewalks in the area?
You know, I don't know that I could speak for the neighbors on that, to be honest with you. Everybody likes the idea of sidewalks in the neighborhood, but nobody has said anything specifically about my development. I have told everyone that the city has requested that I put in a sidewalk, and I've told everybody that I am delighted to do so. I think that's a better idea than paying Ronnie for some trees in Briarwood, but I can certainly appreciate that.
Would you be willing? I don't know if it would be proper for me to ask about the sidewalk, the alternatives to
bank,
the sidewalk bank. To
An assessment.
Would you be willing to put the monies for the sidewalk that you would have had to build on your property in a city sidewalk bank, so that the city, in its determination of which side of the road it needed to go on Oostanula, would that be appropriate? Would that be a condition that
I wouldn't have a problem with that. To be honest with you, I think the planning department does a very nice job looking at this, and I'd be happy to work with them on what makes sense.
Yeah. Okay.
I believe that's our first sidewalk except at the corner of the Party or Canoe.
There is a sidewalk across the street from me on Oostanala, but it is not what has been proposed. It's a 3-foot sidewalk that starts at the curb.
Right.
So partly a sidewalk, but yes, that would be the first on Oostanala, and it somewhat dead ends unless the city comes in. And I certainly like the idea of sidewalks in Oostanala. Please don't misunderstand. I'm happy to pay and put in a sidewalk on Oostanala because I think that makes a good community, and I like that idea. And we were supportive when the city had suggested that. Putting it into a bank I'm okay with, but I don't want that money to end up in a different part of the city. That
Right. I think that we'd like to keep it in the area specific to the area. But I think when the only existing sidewalk on the road is on the opposite side of the street, I think it's worth investigating, having the city investigate where's the best use of the sidewalk. So,
thank you.
All right. Any more comment in support of the application? Is there any comment in opposition to the application? Did you get any, Dan? Okay. All right. I think that's it. We'll
Yes, the next
close
item.
the public hearing on that
one. The last item on the public hearing list is rezoning RZ 13-15 Atlanta Resource Center rezoning request from R100 to C1 at 1296, 1302, 1304 Kendrick Road to construct a parking lot.
Susan? This will be even shorter than the previous two, right?
Yes, I apologize, Mayor. I'm having a technical difficulty here. One second. Mayor and Council, this is case RZ 1315. Would you put the...
It's up there.
It's up there, okay. This is case RZ 13-15. This application was heard by the Planning Commission on February the 5th. The project name and applicant is Atlanta Resources Enterprises, LLLP. The owner is Mark Kick. The property is located at the address of 1296, 1302, and 1304 Kendrick Road. The property is located in the 18th District in land lot 241, and the site contains 1.176 acres. The existing zoning of the property is R100. The requested zoning is C1, which is local commercial. The owner petitioner's intent is to rezone the subject property from R100 to C1, local commercial, for construction of an accessory parking lot for the adjoining existing business and expansion. The staff has recommended denial of the request for the C1 zoning, and we have recommended an alternative zoning of NS for neighborhood shopping in lieu thereof for the construction of the accessory parking lot for the existing business and expansion. The subject property consists of 3 adjacent lots which adjoin the existing Nuts and Berries business. They're located on the north side of Kendrick Road, west of its intersection with Peachtree Road. The site is currently developed with single-family residents accessed by 3 individual curb cuts along Kendrick Road. The lots are bordered on the east and north side by commercial property zones C1 and C2, which are both commercial. To the west of the site is a residential structure currently used as a personal care home known as Safe Haven, zoned R100. To the east, the applicant owns and operates the retail store Nuts and Berries located at 4274 Peachtree Road. The applicant seeks to expand their existing business by adding a second-story addition and extending the storefront towards Peachtree Road, thus requiring additional parking. The applicant's submitted site plan shows that the required 50-foot transitional buffer zone is proposed adjacent to residentially zoned property to the west, and that all 3 residential structures will be demolished. The applicant proposes to utilize 2 existing curb cuts for access to the proposed parking lot, which will connect to an internal 2-way driveway providing access around the parking lot and to the service area located to the northeast portion of the property. Additionally, the applicant proposes to locate a water detention area adjacent to the transitional buffer to account for stormwater runoff associated with the parking lot. The subject property is identified on the future development map as traditional neighborhood character area. The proposed C1 zoning submitted by the applicant is not in conformance with that particular character area. However, NS neighborhood shopping is, therefore it was substituted as an alternative by the staff. The subject property could be suitable for an accessory parking lot to serve an existing neighborhood retail use in light of the mixture of institutional and commercial uses abutting the property if the appropriate buffer is installed. Approving the property for NS would allow for a zoning district and use that would be suitable for the area and function as a transition between existing commercial and residential uses. With proper conditions to establish an enhanced vegetative screen along the associated frontage of the parking lot adjacent to Kendrick Road, that particular installation of screening would help to mitigate impacts to residential uses located to the south. It does appear that the subject property has economic uses currently zoned. Approval of the property for NS neighborhood shopping would further reduce impacts to the neighborhood by facilitating the removal of uninhabitable residential structures in a non-conforming parking area and will establish a 50-foot transitional buffer to the west and enhance landscaping along the Kendrick Road frontage. The neighborhood shopping zoning district would be conforming to the established policies for the character area. The proposed C1 zoning would not be suitable at this location as it is identified in the comprehensive plan. Therefore, the staff substituted NS in lieu thereof. There do not appear to be any known historic building sites, districts, or archaeological resources identified by the applicant or known by the staff to be on or near the property. To date, the City of Brookhaven has not received a response from DeKalb County offices or the DeKalb County school system. The development of an accessory parking lot for expansion of an existing business under the NS zoning district would not cause excessive or burdensome use of streets, transportation facilities, utilities, or schools. In regard to comments from Public Works, driveway modifications on Peachtree will require a GDOT permit, and the Peachtree Road entrance should be restricted to a right turn in only. The handicap ramp on Kendrick Road and Peachtree Road shall be updated as necessary, and the appropriate stormwater management system shall be installed along with a construction stormwater facility management agreement. The police department has indicated that the development shall have no impact on current police services and will not require additional personnel. The staff recommended denial of the request for rezoning to C1 zoning and instead, in lieu thereof, recommended NS neighborhood shopping. And we recommended that zoning with the following 12 conditions, paraphrased. Number 1 would be the site plan. Number 2 is the requirement for transitional buffer. Number 3 is the requirement for a combination plat to combine these 3 lots with the existing business. The 4th is the requirement for streets and sidewalks and parking requirements of the Brookhaven Peachtree Overlay District to be incorporated into the development of the subject property as required by the Community Development Director. The owner-developer shall construct a 5-foot sidewalk along the entire frontage of Kendrick Road for the subject property with a 3-foot wide landscape strip and shall be subject to review and approval of the Public Works Director. The owner-developer shall implement a 15-foot wide landscape strip for the parking lot adjacent to the right-of-way of Kendrick Road in compliance with transitional buffer zone planning standards and subject to approval of the City of Brookhaven arborist. Number 7, only the curb cuts shown on the site plan dated January 2nd may be permitted. No additional curb cuts shall be allowed. The owner or developer shall obtain a GDOT, Georgia Department of Transportation, Peachtree Road driveway modification for the Nuts and Berries property. The Peachtree Road entrance shall be restricted to a right turn in only. The owner developer must obtain a demo permit for removal of all residential structures and associated driveways located on the property prior to obtaining any permits related to the proposed expansion or to utilization of the property for parking. The owner developer shall obtain a land disturbance permit for development of the property compliant with the requirements of land development and zoning regulations. Utilization of the parking lot shall not be authorized until the required buffer, sidewalk, curb cut, and landscape strip are correctly installed, and appropriate stormwater management shall be installed along with a stormwater management agreement. And the Planning Commission recommended denial of this request, and that completes the staff report.
Thank you. Any questions for Susan? I had one, I see in this, this kind of a rendering, which is part of the file towards the end.
Packet page.
207. It's micro print, so.
It's like 185.
207.
206.
Again, I'm looking at the wrong one.
K31. Do you see it?
Why don't you hold it?
I'm looking at
It's like a pencil drawing of
a sketch.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's 206.
Anyway, there's a utility pole on it.
I'm on 206, but I don't see it.
There it is. Right here.
Anyway, just so we don't have to waste any more time, it's just not a major point. Are we not requesting or requiring developments like this to bury the utility pole on the front of their property when we're?
Actually,
It's on the sketch. I don't know if that's just there.
the sketch is actually not part of the condition of zoning. We did not reference this as that. And
know.
this particular rendering with the architectural sketch is not actually part of the zoning case.
Okay.
So
I just wanted to make that point.
we would
the
certainly
future.
make sure with his expansion that we incorporate the components of the Brookhaven Peachtree Overlay
I
District
don't know
in
if
that
that's a part
regard.
of it, but,
There is an intention to put utilities underground.
right, okay,
That could be a condition that the council adds.
okay. Thank you.
The NS district, I don't see a parking lot as a permitted use in the NS district. How are we allowing this use in this particular district?
My opinion is that neighborhood shopping allows for shopping, which allows for parking, and therefore, my opinion is that that parking would be allowed as accessory, and in addition to requiring the combination plat with these 3 lots in conjunction with the business, in my opinion, it would be allowed.
Even if the shopping isn't on that parcel.
Yes, ma'am. And actually, one of the conditions of zoning is combining the 4 lots, the 3 plus the 1.
So we have an accessory use on an adjacent lot, or what will be a combined lot in a different zoning category? That's
Correct.
a permitted use?
Yes.
The properties to the south, immediately across Kendrick, I think if I remember, were residential, R100. why is there not a buffer along Kendrick also adjacent to those residential lots? I see one on the west side, but not one on the south, what I'm calling the south side, which is the Kendrick Road frontage adjacent to those.
You mean across the street?
Across the street, yes, ma'am.
Because the street creates the demarcation that it's not abutting.
I've always heard that the street, never mind.
And
That's an interpretation that, I've heard that that the property owners go to the center line of the street, i.e. if the street goes away, and that the street is not an impediment. That's interesting. Okay. Different interpretation I've heard over the last.
Definitely so.
On the sketch again, that shows two-story, which is in compliance with the overlay. Is that
Yes, sir.
Is that a vaulted? Is that just a vaulted ceiling, or is that actual a floor where there'd be tables or use of some type? Or is that not part of the plan yet? I can ask the applicant.
Yeah, the applicant really should address that, but they are proposing to go 2 stories up and push the building closer to East Tree Road.
Right.
And this is a schematic.
Right, okay. All right, thank you. Any more questions for Susan? All right. Can we hear from the applicant, Mr. Kick? Or Linda, for Mr. Kick?
Good evening. I'm Linda Dunleavy, and I'm here on behalf of the applicant. Mr. Kick, the owner of Nuts and Berries, is here to answer any questions that the council may have. It is the Nuts and Berries business that is driving this application. As the mayor has pointed out, there is a conceptual sketch in your package showing what it is that Nuts and Berries wants to do, but as Ms. Cannon has said, the Nuts and Berries property itself is not part of the rezoning. The rezoning request is for the 3 lots behind what is currently Nuts and Berries. The reason for the rezoning request is the desire to expand Nuts and Berries out the front in this 2-story conceptual design that the mayor has pointed out. Before I get too much into the substance, I do want to talk about what we'll be requesting tonight. We are not requesting that this council vote this application up or down. On February 6th, I emailed to all council persons and to Ms. Cannon and concerned and interested neighbors my notice that we would be requesting a deferral. Unfortunately, I was retained to represent the applicant in this case 24 hours before the Planning Commission hearing. Then I left the next day for an out-of-country trip for 2 weeks. And so I've had very little time to familiarize myself with the application. But what is very clear after the Planning Commission hearing is that this zoning got off on the wrong foot. What is very clear is that time needs to be spent working with the neighborhood, trying to engage in meaningful dialogue, hopefully coming up with a compromise plan, or at least giving it the best try. Nuts and Berries has been a business in this community for in excess of 20 years. This is the first time that they have come before a body like this seeking rezoning or expansion of their business. I think that there may be a lot of creative alternatives to the plan that has been submitted to this body for consideration tonight, and I would like an opportunity, along with Mr. Kick, who has a sincere desire to work with this community, to try and come up with a plan. We are asking actually for a fairly lengthy deferral. I think in my email I identified it as a full cycle deferral, and forgive me, that's the old DeKalb County lawyer in me. I'm not even sure whether the city of Brookhaven uses that term. But what we would be asking for is that this matter be deferred for consideration by this body on June the 14th. With a remand to Planning Commission. Planning Commission made it abundantly clear that they wanted to see, working with the neighborhood, consideration of alternative plans, and to actually be presented with an alternative plan. So that is what we're asking, is that there be a deferral to the City Council on June 14th. I do understand that there are a number of neighbors out here who vigorously oppose this application. For a variety of reasons that I can't even begin to probe in the brief time that we have. I would hope that this council would see the merit in allowing a fresh set of eyes, mainly me, and maybe Mr. Kick, with, sort of new understanding of what he is up against at this point, to come up with a plan that would work for everybody, or at least give us that opportunity through June 14th. And so that's what we're asking for. I would save any remaining time that I might have for rebuttal and certainly would entertain questions. Thank you.
Question on your date. I may have this wrong. June 14th is a Saturday.
June 10th. I'm sorry, June 10th.
June 10th, okay.
I saw June 10th, 2014, and I blurred them together. It is
Okay.
June 10th, and Planning Commission would be June 4th.
Thank you.
Susan, do you want to make sure we got those dates right?
June 10th and June 4th.
Okay.
June 4th would be
Planning.
Planning Commission, and then what's application deadline?
I'm calculating that.
Yeah.
We would need a revised plan by May the 12th.
May 12th. Does that work for the applicant?
Does that work for?
Yes.
Is that agreeable to community development?
May 12th. Yes.
That's their date.
Okay, great. Just want to make sure.
And then before May 12th, I guess that's what, 2.5 months? Be ample time to meet with the neighborhood at length before that.
It is certainly my intention, should this body defer the matter, to immediately start working on dates with the neighborhood.
Okay.
And quite frankly, it's my hope that rather than putting a plan in front of the neighborhood, we sit down with the neighborhood and talk about, okay, what do you guys want to see? Can we give you that? Can it work? We would also, want the assistance of staff to look at this, any sort of conceptual plan that we come up with the neighborhood to say, this can be done from a code standpoint.
Okay. All right, thank you. Anyone here speak in support of this application? Anybody here to speak in opposition to this application? Okay. You have just Daniel, call out the names.
Baxter Thompson.
All right.
Daniel is.
Sure.
My name is
Make sure that the applicant has a copy of what you're giving us.
Baxter. Thank you.
I think so, yeah.
Good, thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor, the clerk's going to need a copy of what's being
The
submitted.
clerk and the applicant.
This was emailed to the
This is
mayor
in
council,
our-
wasn't
It's
it?
actually in the packet.
It's in our packet.
It's in the packet.
Yeah.
So we just wanted to provide copies that you guys
Thank
have
you.
them for reference. Yeah.
Susan can have one of these, and then, and Ms. Dunleavy, do you have one? You can have this one up here.
Is that the email that we got?
This is the PowerPoint. It's in the packet.
Corrected?
Linda, do you have one?
Yes, she does. She does. She didn't get the note. She got
Proceed,
it.
please.
Okay, my name is Baxter Thompson. I live at 1276 Kendrick Road, 2 houses down from the proposed rezoning. I'm here to speak on behalf of myself and also as a director of the Kendrick Osborne Neighborhood Association's newly formed Georgia Nonprofit Corporation. I apologize for having to be so quick. I want to respond to Linda's proposal to go ahead and defer this. We actually wanted to defer this at the Planning Commission. Mr. Kick refused to do so. Since then, he's refused to meet with us. We've been at this for months and months and months. We haven't been able to figure anything out, and in my analysis, it does not look like we can really come to an agreement that will fit within current zoning laws. On that note, I'd like to talk about precedent. In terms of future development in the city of Brookhaven, to allow this type of rezoning would set a dangerous precedent for commercial encroachment into residential areas. And if you look at Kendrick, where would it stop? Would it just keep going? Interestingly, the Community Development Department recommended that the subject parcels be rezoned neighborhood shopping to allow for construction of an accessory parking lot incidental to the primary use of nuts and berries. In making an important note, as you guys pointed out, parking lot is not a primary use allowed in neighborhood shopping district. In making their recommendation, it appears as though the Community Development Department did not look at Section 27-31 of the Brookhaven Municipal Code, which states that an accessory use must be located on the same lot with the principal use. Again, nuts and berries is not a part of this rezoning application. Therefore, The use of the subject parcels as an accessory parking lot incidental to the primary use of Nuts and Berries, which is located on a separate parcel, is strictly prohibited under Brookhaven's own municipal code. As Ms. Cannon pointed out, turning to the comprehensive plan, it shows that the parcels as traditional neighborhood. Mr. Kick has had a history of non-compliance in the past. Prior to this application and in anticipation of this rezoning request, he brought in upwards of 50 dump truck loads of dirt and cut down huge numbers of trees without proper permitting from DeKalb County. This was confirmed by Betsy Stark, senior planner with DeKalb County. The trees were almost entirely located on the 50-foot buffer between R100 and the proposed NS. We would have had a great buffer. He cut down literally every tree. You can see that in your parking lot or in the packet. Spot zoning is also an issue here. A case, Westbrook versus Board of Adjustment. It was a case just like this. There was a residential property that bordered commercial. It was found to be legal spot zoning, and it was designed where such rezoning was properly denied, where such rezoning appeared that the owner purchased with full knowledge of the residential restrictions of the lots when he purchased them. Finally, the Brookhaven Peachtree Livable Centers Initiative, the LCI, does not include the subject parcels as part of the commercial development. I'd like to ask the next person to speak.
Alonzo Jones.
Hello, my name is Alonzo Jones. I live at 2771 Tallulah Drive. It's on the corner of Tallulah and Kendrick. I'd like to speak a little bit about the applicants being a little bit encroaching in what his requests are and his actual intents. As he already stated, his need is to expand his business based off of what he says is his clientele needs. But if you actually visit the store has actually been partitioned, so there's actual less square footage of inventory. And then by making his building larger, he's created an issue that didn't exist already, and the need to expand his parking, and then therefore creates a compliance issue, therefore the need to expand his lots. In doing so, he creates, as already stated by previous parties, a situation where there are 3 lots that now become one large lot, and encroaches what is equivalent of 3, as you can see in the overhead there. 3 lots become one large, equivalent of 3 houses, which are my neighbors to the east of me. This creates a situation where you have a community being encroached upon by a community business that we feel is unacceptable. And as previously stated, we have tried to work with him before to try and figure out some solution. Anything from, having his parking lot run north to south instead of east to west, to potentially making the lots the use they are now, which is R100, and building new houses there. His reply was basically that he felt that was not reasonable due to the poor view, imposed by the, I think it's a storage place to the north. But our recent development has shown large growth in our community with 11 houses on Tallulah, 9 on Kendrick, many of which face that same view that he says is not, a viable solution. So what we have is a person who is trying to request rights that no other business has to rezone, as stated by Baxter, in a manner that has not done before, and would create that slippery slope where you have business encroaching upon residential properties. Thank you.
Next.
Mara Morrison.
Good evening. My name is Mara Morrison. I live at 1238 Kendrick Road with my husband Ed Morrison and our 3 children, Anna, who is 6, Emily, who is 4, and Matthew, who is 2. Ed and I moved to Kendrick Road about 8 years ago looking for a residential area to live in close to the city because we wanted a sense of community, to feel a sense of community, and we've established that in our neighborhood over the years. We have family cookouts, we have pig roasts, we have child play dates in our neighborhood, and I've really enjoyed the sense of community we've established in our neighborhood. My only complaint about my neighborhood is traffic. Since the conclusion of Town Brookhaven, traffic has increased tremendously on our street. I have 3 kids, as I've mentioned, who are wild, full of energy. They love to ride their bikes. However, it's really hard, as it is right now, for them to be outside playing on the street. For example, just for them to ride their bike, and I'm not exaggerating here, about 300 yards up the street, I have them pull over 2 to 3 times, car coming, car coming, car coming. I honestly feel like I spend more time watching the cars go by than watching my children riding their bikes. On Sunday, we were outside for 10 minutes, too crowded. I got them in the car, went down to the zoo to enjoy the day. So I just feel like more commercial encroachment into our area is going to increase traffic, which we don't have, we just can't, sorry, what I'm trying to say here is we don't have room for more traffic. We're already congested enough. We have, if you look at the demographics of our children on page 19, my children are of the older age group. We have a number of children growing up, getting ready to start riding their bikes, wanting to enjoy these things in our neighborhood. So I just respectfully request any denial of any proposal to rezone residential zoning into commercial zoning. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Dave Bars.
I am Dave Bars. My wife and I live at 1299 Kendrick, which is directly across the street from the property. About a year and a half ago, mayoral candidate J. Max Davis was at town forum at Oglethorpe, and he did an eloquent job of casting a vision for Brookhaven being the crown jewel of the Southeast, and we liked that. But let me tell you what taking time to talk this thing through looks like with the applicant. About a month ago, the applicant stood in front of my house and explained to me that if I didn't get my neighbors on board with his plan, that he would sell out to a big developer with deep pockets, and those guys get anything they want, and we'd have to fight them. That's what cooperation looks like. What the crown jewel looks like to a developer and what it looks like to residential homeowners may be two different things. And we are homeowners, residential homeowners in a community like Ashford Park or Brittany or Brookhaven Heights, Brookhaven Fields, historic Brookhaven, Hampton Hall. We're a community just like that. And we have kids playing and going back and forth and people walking to supper clubs and enjoying each other's company. And we fight the traffic to do that, and we literally move out of the way to not get run over, but we do the best we can. We receive campaign letters from Mayor Davis and Councilman Bates, and they espouse things like vision of a livable and walking community, to protect our neighborhoods and property values, to promote pedestrian shopping areas, and reducing automotive traffic, and supporting a master plan such as the Brookhaven Overlay LCI. And we like all of those things. We're on board with you. And we would ask that you follow the recommendation of the Planning Committee, who already unanimously denied this. And we ask that tonight you would vote up or down, and we ask that you unanimously vote this application down. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bars. Next.
Shane Murphy.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. My name is Shane Murphy. I live at 1303 Kendrick with my wife, Rachel. You guys received an email from me recently as well asking for you to deny this. Some things I want you to think about, and you don't have to answer this, but how would you feel if you walked out your front door and you suddenly saw a parking lot where when you bought in the community, you saw growth and development of residential homes, and not small residential homes. Bates, you've been in our neighborhood, you've been to our barbecues, you've been to our cookouts, our first one as a matter of fact. You look at the development there, you have homes most recently of approximately 20 that are being built for $600,000 plus. You have people in the community with homes that are worth more than that. So when we talk about economic viability of a neighborhood to continue as residential, there are 3 prime lots right there to continue that behavior. We don't need a parking lot there. And when we look at some of the things that are critical, mostly to me in this regard, and I'm going to be selfish for a moment, 1303, if you look at that map, I'm already surrounded on 2 sides by C1.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, point of order. The 10 minutes has expired.
Okay.
You, by a majority of the council, can agree to extend that, and if you do extend that, then I would also propose that the additional time be added to Ms. Dunleavy's rebuttal.
We'll add an extra 3 minutes. Would that be enough for you?
Yes, sir.
All right.
That'd be great. I appreciate it.
Is there a
Thank
motion?
I'm in support of that. I move that we add 3 minutes to both the applicant's time
Two more
and the
speakers.
appellant's time.
Let's make it 5 minutes, all right?
5. Well, I'll amend my motion to 5 minutes for both sides.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor of amending the speaking time to add additional 5 minutes for both sides, signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I'll be quick. So if you look at the map, if those 3 lots were rezoned from R100 to C1, now I'm surrounded on 3 sides by commercial, right? My wife and I want to have kids. In fact, my wife and I were pregnant with triplets recently, and we lost all 3 of our babies in December. And the support, when you think about a member who's really going to add to the value of the community, would feel sympathetic and encourage the togetherness that this community has. And every one of my neighbors has reached out and supported us, with the exception of one person who made a comment that if our children had lived in 4 or 5 years, we would be moving anyway, and this would be a moot point to us. That's the type of person you have that doesn't care about this community, doesn't care about this neighborhood, and that's Mark Kick who made that comment to me when I approached him one-on-one to talk about this about 3 or 4 weeks ago. So I'm surrounded at that point by commercial. Accessory use not permitted, not compliant with comprehensive plan, illegal clear cutting already, illegal spot zoning, surrounding at least one resident on 3 sides by commercial, inconsistent with home buyers' expectations, inconsistent with current residential development, overreaching application, violates safe and peaceful enjoyment, application inconsistent with business operation, applicant's failure to collaborate, seeks privilege, not relief, dangerous precedents. And I'll end, Mr. Mayor, by saying encourage great behavior, right? When we don't encourage great behavior, travesty occurs. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Joe Mosher.
Can we get another clock that is on the same, where it faces this way too? Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Joe Mosher. I live at 1282 Kendrick, just on the other side of the nursing home. A couple points that I wanted to bring up this evening is behind our home, we already have some woods as a buffer, but we also have kind of a creek bed that runs through there. So the mosquitoes that we have are horrific. And part of this proposal, a retention pond is required. So now we're going to have standing water adding to, that issue already. Another thing I wanted you to consider is basically Mr. Kick is asking for special treatment. He's saying he's basically asking you, I want to be treated different than every other business along Peachtree. And I want you to treat these 3 lots differently than every other residential R100 lot in Brookhaven. If we were talking about the owner of, let's say, Dunkin' Donuts, and they happen to own the property right behind them, and they were going to demolish that house and create a parking lot there would be uproar in the club in historic Brookhaven. A number of people have already mentioned that the planning committee's already voted against this. I think you're probably starting to see why. They've asked for, instead of commercial or C1 to be zoned neighborhood shopping, but to me that's already like halfway to C1, because once this neighborhood shopping in this parking lot goes in, it's never going to be residential again. It's gone. And then let's say 5-10 years down the road, you've got a big parcel of commercial and pretty much commercial. What's to stop them from selling off to some big developer that's going to make phase 2 of Town Brookhaven, or a 30-story high-rise like the Ritz-Carlton building right there before you get to Wyuka. And that's what we don't want, is people looking into our backyards and everything, and not to mention the added traffic that it brings. And then I guess the last point that I want to make is that really you have 2 people in favor of this, Mr. Kick and his wife, and you have close to 80 to 100 people opposed to it. And these are the same people who were at the Brookhaven Yes meetings. These are the same people who manned phones, knocked on doors, passed out flyers, raised funds, talked to everybody under the sun about the city of Brookhaven and what it would mean to incorporate. We're well educated, we're well connected, we're tax-paying citizens, and we vote.
Next.
Amy Walker Bars.
I don't have anything to add, it's all been
Okay.
covered.
Anybody else? Okay. And whatever remaining time the applicant had in the additional 5 minutes, if Ms. Dunleavy or Mr. Kick want to come up.
It says I have 11 minutes and 20 seconds. I have
You pull the microphone down a little bit.
have a feeling that this body would not tolerate listening to me for 11 minutes and 20 seconds. So I'm going to try and cut it in half. And just kind of want to address some of the issues that have been raised by the concerned neighbors. The first issue that was raised, I believe, by Mr. Thompson was that there's nothing in the code that would allow the type of accessory parking lot use that is being proposed here. I respectfully disagree. I think that Ms. Cannon provided the appropriate explanation here. What we have is we have Nuts and Berries as one C1 lot, and then we have 3 residentially zoned lots. As one of the conditions that's being proposed by Ms. Cannon, the 4 lots would be merged into 1 lot. And so then it would come into compliance with the requirement under your code that was appropriately read by Mr. Thompson. That's section 27-31 says your principal use has to be located on this, or your accessory use has to be located on the same lot as your principal use. I have gone through the Brookhaven zoning ordinance. I've practiced in DeKalb County for more years than I really want to disclose, and I'm pretty familiar with the DeKalb County zoning ordinance and the City of Brookhaven's ordinance. There's absolutely nothing that says you cannot have an accessory use on the same lot where there perhaps may be a zoning line down the middle of the lot, and you have different zoning classifications on the same lot. There's absolutely nothing prohibiting that. So I do question Mr. Thompson's reading of that particular provision. Unfortunately, I also contacted Ms. Betsy Stark of the DeKalb County Planning Department today to try and see if I could gain some insight into the aerial photographs that were submitted with respect to fill and removal of trees. And I did speak with Ms. Stark, and what she told me is she was unable to recall exactly what those pictures were all about, and she'd have to really take a look at that. She could not shed any light on the tree removal or the fill dirt that's shown in those photographs. With respect to spot zoning, I respectfully submit to Mr. Thompson that this is not spot zoning. If you take a look at the map, we've got 3 residential lots that are, in the hatched area. To the north is a C2 zoning where there is a public storage facility. To the east, you've got 1, 2, 3 C1 zonings. The definition of a spot zoning is where you might have one lot that is surrounded completely by different and more restrictive or greater restrictive zoning classifications. A spot zoning would certainly not result in this particular case. I think Ms. Cannon's explanation was the correct one from a planning standpoint, which is if you have C1 fronting on Peachtree, from a planning perspective, it's somewhat logical to then have a neighborhood shopping designation, which is a less dense, more restrictive zoning classification than C1, stepping down to the single-family residential zonings across the street and to the rear of this property. This body has adopted, as I understand it, the DeKalb County future land use plan map for this particular area, and the vision for this property that this body has adopted is the TND land use classification. And the TND land use classification includes more than large single-family residential lots. The TND land use classification and the vision that this board adopted encompasses things like neighborhood shopping, which would be consistent with the land use plan as noted by Ms. Cannon. Both business owners and property owners in the city of Brookhaven, I've heard tonight, especially when I saw the recognition and the awards that were handed out at the beginning, are valued by this body. Both contribute substantially to this community. Nuts and Berries, as a long business owner in the city of Brookhaven, has contributed to this community just like the neighborhood and the neighbors have to this community. I would hope that both of these stakeholders would be given an opportunity to sit down at the table and engage in some important and meaningful discussions. An opportunity that, unfortunately, for a variety of reasons, just simply has not occurred. I would hope that this body, because of the valuable contribution that business owners make to this community, would not vote to deny this application, and therefore, as a result of your own ordinance, bar any rezoning application coming in before this body for another 2 years. That seems to me to be a very, very punitive result when all the business owner is asking for today is for a deferral to be given an opportunity. Maybe that opportunity will come to naught. But I do think that after 20 years in this community, and given the vision for this area, given the Brookhaven Peachtree Overlay District and the importance of the economic viability of businesses in the BPOD, that this body would go ahead and grant Mr. Kick's request for a deferral. He's not asking for a special privilege. Everybody has the right to come before a governmental body and ask to rezone their property, just like all of these good people have the right to come in and oppose it. It's not a special privilege. It's merely a request. It's a request based upon his desire to expand his business, to make it more economically viable, and to have the appropriate amount of parking. What is to stop the creep or explosion that these neighbors talk about if this property was to be zoned neighborhood shopping? Your comprehensive plan. You've adopted a land use plan that has a TND designation only for the properties on the north side of Kendrick that go to, I believe that is 1286. If my old eyes are reading it correctly, that is where your TND stops. And that is where I think it is appropriate to draw that line in the sand. So I would ask that you allow the applicant an opportunity to engage with the community and defer this to council for June 10th, 2014. And I used a little bit more than half of my remaining time, but I didn't use 11 minutes and 20 seconds. Thank you.
I have a question. When were you retained?
I was retained 24 hours before the Planning Commission hearing.
And so you didn't attend the Planning Commission meeting?
No, I did attend the Planning Commission hearing. Yes, I did.
Okay, and that was a couple weeks ago?
That was February 5th. And on February 6th, I emailed y'all and said a lot of work needs to be done and requested a deferral, or that this body consider it.
Okay. Any more questions from Ms. maybe on
I have a question for our staff. Thank you. For our staff, did the city of Brookhaven, in my research, I wasn't able to find the Kendrick Road overlay. Was the Kendrick Road overlay adopted in our ordinances?
No, it was not. It was removed in the adoption process.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah. I don't have any other questions about it.
Anybody have any questions for staff or the applicant or opposition?
Excuse me, I need to hand in my speaker card.
Okay.
My constitutional objections. It's just on it.
Actually, Linda, you might be able to answer, or Susan. I'm not familiar with the TND designation is what?
It's a traditional neighborhood development. I would feel much more comfortable that Susan is the planner, tell you about that. But the TND is, you've got a land use plan which has has zoning categories with which it is considered compatible. Right. Traditional neighborhood development contemplates single-family residences, higher density single-family residences, and a sort of neighborhood shopping, limited commercial. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Okay.
Any questions or comments? I'll just say one thing. Can I say something now?
Would you, Mayor, after the public hearing and you go into the discussion on the item, then that would be the time to make the comments.
Okay. So if there are no more comments on this matter, we'll go to, I think that's it, right? Into new business.
Correct.
And we'll consider
If you would close the hearing.
Yeah, we'll close the public hearing and go to new business.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, under new business, ordinance 2014-01-01, RZ 13-11. Also, item number 2 and item number 3, the special land use permits. If you'll recall, Ms. Cannon in the public hearing presented those all in combination, but did mention that when you act on the case, that you would act on them separately. So the next three items are all related to the property for Ashford Green, but beginning with RZ 13-11.
All right, so is there a motion on item one? The three go together, we have to do them separately.
Correct.
Is there a motion on ordinance number one?
This is for the 2014, 02, 01, and then 02?
No, we're going to do 0101, and then we'll have to do them each individually.
Yeah, separately,
So
a
just-
separate action on
But
each.
the motion will likely be the same for all three.
Yeah. I'd like to move that we defer ordinance 2014-01-01, the John Hancock Life Insurance rezoning from office and industrial conditional or office institution to OI at 4170 Ashford Dunwoody Road. That they defer it to the city council meeting on April 22nd, to be remanded to the Planning Commission on April 2nd with revisions due to the Planning Department by March 10th.
All right, is there a second?
Seconded.
Any discussion? All in favor of the motion signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right.
I move that we also defer ordinance 2014-01-02, a SLUP 13-01, to exceed the height of all buildings and structures above 5 stories and 70 feet. The same motion where we would take it to the city council on April 22nd, to the Planning Commission on April 2nd, with revisions due to the Planning Department by March 10th.
Is there a second?
Seconded.
Any discussion? All in favor of the deferral signify so by saying aye.
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 All opposed?
Okay, and so one more time for good measure, the ordinance 2014-01-03, the SLUP 13-02, to develop high-rise apartments in the O&I zoning district, with the same stipulations as the previous.
Is there a second?
Seconded.
All in favor, any discussion? All in favor of the deferral signify so by saying aye.
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 All opposed? All right, it's deferred. Number 4,
Yes, RZ 13-14, Courtney DeFries.
is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve ordinance, I've lost my place here, ordinance
RZ 13. 2014.
For some reason, I've...
Gotta go back to old faithful.
I do have it, sorry. I just was, I wasn't skipping ahead.
It's in wireless here.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve RZ 13-14, Courtney DeFries rezoning request from R75 to R50 at 1458 Edward Drive, with conditions stated by our planning department, and amending that condition number 6.
You just submit the conditions with the record. However, submit the conditions with the record, I guess.
Yeah, I can read it into the record if you like.
Okay.
If I can find it.
Technology, what page is it on? I'll find it.
About 400, page 400 and something.
Page 162.
162. Thank you.
Who's faster? Right there.
160. Okay. We're working on it.
Let's get his workout tonight.
All right. Here it is.
Maybe somebody else should make the motion.
Hold on. This is a difficult condition on here.
Would you like me to offer up some language for number 6?
No, I took the time to write it down. So here it is. Item 6, prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy for individual lots, the owner developer shall pay the City of Brookhaven Sidewalk Bank the cost to construct a 5-foot sidewalk with a 2-foot wide landscape strip along the entire property frontage along Ustinula Drive. However, owner developer shall not be subject to recompense for tree removal related to the sidewalks required by this condition. The use of funds paid to the sidewalk bank will be used to fund sidewalks within the neighborhood Brookhaven Fields, with preference to Oostanula Drive and surrounding streets, and/or surrounding streets.
May I ask for a point of clarification?
Yes. Sure.
Would that be payment at the time, at or prior to CO?
I'd like for planning recommendations, planning department recommendations. If that's a recommendation, yes, I will accept that.
It would be prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy.
So I amend my motion to include clarifying the motion to pay those funds at this
Prior to the issuance
prior to the issuance
of a certificate of occupancy.
Better hurry up, he's got a low battery.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, babe.
Hey, we are working on this technology. Still, the hyperlink's not there yet.
All right, so that's your motion.
That is my motion.
I second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor of adoption of the motion, signify so by saying aye.
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 All opposed? All right, the ordinance is approved with the amendments and the conditions.
Can I make one comment?
Sure.
I just want to congratulate Mr. DeFries for getting the support of his neighbors ahead of time.
He's not listening. Come on.
I'm talking about you. I just want to congratulate you for getting the support of your neighbors. I think that's extremely helpful and obviously makes the process go a lot smoother. We're hoping that that's going to be sort of more the rule rather than the exception. And I really appreciate you doing that, and I'm glad that we were able to approve your plan tonight. I look forward to seeing it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
We'll take it out of his hide later.
All right. Thank you. Number 5.
RZ 13-15 Atlanta Resource Center rezoning request from R100 to C1 at 1296, 1302, 1304 Kendrick.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we defer RZ 13-15 Atlanta Resource Center rezoning request from R100 to C1 at 1296, 1302, and 1304 Kendrick to the June 10th City Council meeting date to be heard by our Planning Commission on June 4th with new applications to be submitted to our Planning Department by May 12th.
Is it new applications or is it
Updated information due by May 12th, 2014.
Is there a second?
I will second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I just want to make a point in this that we certainly respect and understand the concerns of the neighborhood. It is important that your concerns are heard, and they have been heard in this public hearing. But as a council, I think that it's judicious for us to allow the parties to have a chance to negotiate in this. So,
any more discussion?
I just hope that that you all will talk, and that will. I think you've got some bridges to mend, and I really look forward to some creative solutions and a win-win for everybody. I love Nuts and Berries, and I love your street, and I love the kind of community. This is what Brookhaven is all about. So let's find a meeting of the minds and maybe try to get this worked out. You both have good points, and I hope you go forth and negotiate in good faith. And Linda, I've watched you for years, and so I know you've got a lot of talent in this regard. And do your thing.
I'll just say this. Obviously, this application, as it is right now, doesn't have much support, and that's obvious probably up here and up there. So I think that's understood by everybody, and we're very mindful of that. The reason I asked about when Ms. Dunleavy was retained, because as an attorney, I know sometimes our clients are not aware of things they say or do, and until we can get a hold of them and make sure they do things the right way, it's kind of it's a tough road to hoe. So, pressing that reset button, I think, is very important here. And the reason I think dialogue is always important, and it sounds like there's been attempts to have dialogue, and there's been some pushback on both ends, and maybe some hurt feelings. And I think in Brookhaven, what I always try to promote is people talking. If you can't agree, then you can't agree. But to just shut down and not go forward with talking, I think is not healthy for the community. I mean, if nuts and berries is likely not going anywhere, so if there's no talking by Mr. Kick to the neighbors and vice versa, there's probably going to be animosity and hurt feelings for the next 20 years. If his application gets denied, he's still going to be there, and y'all going to have to drive by his business every day, and he's going to have to drive by y'all. And I think it'd be better for neighborhoods to be able to at least wave and talk to each other without hurt feelings. Not saying that whatever comes back in June is going to be approved by the council or not approved, but it's always best to talk to one another and have a dialogue. And if you still can't agree, that's the way it is. But I really believe that folks should try to be more neighborly on both ends. Business owners need to understand that. And people who come to the city with development plans have been preaching this since day one. You got to go to the neighborhoods first. You got to knock on doors like you're campaigning. You got to talk to people and sit down, offer to buy them coffee, do something before you come with an application. It's a prerequisite. And I keep saying this over and over again because we hear it again and again. People come without having met with the neighborhood in a proper fashion, or are obstinate and don't listen to what neighbors have to say. But the neighbors are, they're our voters, they're our constituents. We have to listen to their concerns. And we want to balance those concerns with business interests as well. I know Mr. Kick owns this business in Brookhaven and lives in Brookhaven. And I just would like to see this, whether or not y'all can agree on something, I would like to at least be able to see some folks end up being civil to one another in the end. And that's my goal, is just civility and neighborliness. And that runs both ways, but especially for applicants. So that's my 2 cents. I don't get to vote on this, but that's what I believe. It's just dialogue is always best, even if you can't agree in the end. Anybody else? All right. We've already had a motion, right?
Yep.
Okay. All in favor of the deferral signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, the matter is deferred according to the amendment or the motion which stated June 10th and June 4th. All right, next ordinance.
Mr. Mayor,
If we could take a pause for a second.
We are accepting no bribes today.
Perfect. Yes, it would.
Well,
All right, conversations in the back of the room need to move to the lobby if they would. I appreciate it. All right, number 6.
yes,
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, this is an ordinance 2014-01-05. This is an ordinance to amend Chapter 14, particularly the stream buffer. And you'll recall yesterday we reviewed this, and it was the consensus of the council to reschedule this for March the 11th.
Okay, is there a motion?
I move we defer ordinance 2014-01-05 to the March 11th council meeting.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor of moving it, signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Other business?
Other business, we have 2 items. Number 1, consideration of the appointment of the city attorney.
Or is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we appoint our city...
No, that we confirm the appointment.
That we confirm the appointment of our city attorney.
I second.
That city attorney being
Tom Curry.
Tom Curry.
Sure will.
All right. Any discussion? All in favor of the confirmation of the appointment of Tom Curry to be Brookhaven city attorney signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Congratulations, Mr. City Attorney. There's no more interim.
Thank you.
Where
Do you realize that you are now officially our first full term?
Yeah, you are. You're
attorney.
The first city
official
attorney
city attorney of the
Brookhaven.
city of Brookhaven.
Thank you for the privilege.
Well, thank you for your service. Public comments?
No.
We have one, we added, amended the agenda
Oh,
to resolutions.
Oh, what do I do? Wish the room were full for that. Come back.
I would like to propose two separate resolutions in support of some bills that are being sponsored in the legislature as early as tomorrow morning. Both of them is by a representative, Ed Lindsay. The first one is House Bill number 964, and it is basically, do I just make the resolution and make the conversation later?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to go through, though, what it's going to be included.
Well, they'll write the resolution. What's the resolution?
The resolution's already been drafted.
Okay. So this will be a motion for passage of resolution number 2014-02-01 for HB 964 in reference to council support House Bill for business and municipal charter schools.
Is there a second?
Seconded.
Any discussion? All in favor of adoption of the resolution signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Next one.
All right, any discussion on it?
We didn't do discussion. No, no discussion.
Okay, that went fast.
I'll reserve some mayor's comments.
The second one, I want to make sure we have a chance for some kind of conversation on this, because I do want to make a point.
We can do it in mayor's comments.
Okay, great. So this is for passage of resolution number 2014-02-02 for House Bill number 804. And this is a House bill in support of child victims of sexual and physical abuse.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor of adoption of the resolution signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right.
Do we know when crossover day is?
That's a big mystery. I read somewhere it was Monday, and other people think it's Thursday of next week.
All right.
So it's
Thursday.
Coming up quick.
All right, public comments? Any more public comment? Okay. Mayor's comments. Joe, if you want to briefly talk about those
Sure.
two bills.
Just as a form, by way of description. Okay, so House Bill number 964 is in this city, one of the most frequent questions I get asked, and I think my fellow council members get asked too, is what can you do for education in the city of Brookhaven? And you all know that's run by the DeKalb County School Board. And basically, our powers are fairly limited. So when we have an opportunity to support a bill that can help potentially provide us with a tool that we can bring to the equation that can assist us in improving the educational system, I think it's our duty to support it. So House Bill number 964 is a pretty unique bill by Ed Lindsay, and it's an amendment to a current article and chapter on file. It has basically four points to it. The first is to provide for charter schools in the workplace. Second is to provide for charter schools in a municipality. The third is to provide for enrollment priorities for charter schools. And then the fourth point is to provide for petitions for all charter schools in the workplace and the municipalities. It's an opportunity to crack the ice one more time here and get us an asset that we can possibly bring to market to where it's appropriate and has the support of the community.
Thank you, Joe.
Okay.
All right.
The second one, a little bit more serious matter. Well, they're both serious, but I'm not sure if you folks are aware of this, but Brookhaven, and particularly a resident in District 4 in Pine Hills by the name of Greg Chevalier, has been appointed by the Governor's Office for Children and Families to head the Governor's Task Force group to eliminate what is known as CSEC. That's commercial sexual exploitation of children. It's an extremely serious matter. Very serious. I've attended several training sessions with the chief, who is very well involved in this from his other positions in other cities. Greg is actually going to be directing an organization called Street Grace. And what Resolution 2014-0202, which is House Bill number 804, does is it makes it easier for underage victims of sexual and physical abuse to testify against their violators. And allows them to do it remotely via a video rather than having to be face-to-face in a court, which can be an extremely emotional and very, very emotional and psychological detriment to the child. And apparently this is not something that's available today, and I support this bill wholeheartedly, and I think it's just one more step forward going after those that are, as Ed appropriately described, monsters in society.
Yeah, if people are wondering why this bill is necessary, or why in the past this wasn't available, well, our Constitution and the tradition of American jurisprudence is that you have the right to confront your accuser. That is when somebody accuses you of something, you have the right to see them, your attorney has the right to cross-examine them, the jury has the right to notice their mannerisms, how they speak, what their inflections are, to determine the veracity of the person who's given the testimony. And I think what's good about technology now is that because you have minors involved, that traditional jurisprudence really had no avenue by which to allow that to take place. And although it won't be in the same courtroom, because they're a minor, we can make this allowance and this exception to where we let someone testify outside the presence of their accuser. So it's a great bill. I didn't realize Georgia didn't have that, but I'm glad that this bill is up, and I don't see anybody opposing this. And I'm glad you pointed this out, and Brookhaven's in support of it, because we do have a lot of just finding out there's quite a bit of sexual exploitation that goes on in the particular Beaufort Highway, surprisingly.
No, I have to stand correct you for a second. What's really, and you'll find out about this in the very near future because we're going to be bringing it to council, Atlanta is a hub for this activity.
For sexual trafficking, yeah.
It is amazing how active Atlanta is in this. You guys are going to be blown off the map when you hear about it. And Greg's position to this appointment by the governor's office, this is the prototype that's going to be statewide. We have the honor of doing it as the city of Brookhaven, and we're going to be coming out with 3 cities that are going to be acknowledged as officially those cities on board in support of this. It involves training sessions for members of council and staff, and my recommendation is that we move ahead full force, that Brookhaven be the very first city to be recognized in this fashion, and I'll be coming back with more information.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate that.
My pleasure.
Anybody else have any comments? All right, I don't have any more comments. Executive session.
Yes, we do need to go into executive session to discuss litigation and contracts.
How long do you think this will take?
As long as you want.
I'm thinking 15 minutes, but why don't we take a 5-minute break and then go into executive session? And then, if the motion, I'm going to order a 5-minute break, but after you make your motion.
Make a motion to go into executive session.
Seconded.
For what reasons?
For
That's excellent.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm giving it
For litigation and contracts.
Litigation, contracts.
And contracts.
Anything else? Okay.
Seconded.
Any discussion? All in favor of adjourning into executive session after the 5-minute break, signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right.
Should I put a stipulation on it? We can't go beyond.